Chapter 208. Unknowingly, I've already become so strong. The heavens really reward the diligent. Wang Kai couldn't help but reveal a satisfied smile as he looked at his status panel. He also felt a faint sense of pride and arrogance in his heart. My strength is already very good. However, I definitely can't become complacent just because I've made some progress. You have to know that my ultimate opponents aren't the puny Shrek's 7 monsters, but those high and mighty gods and even the world's consciousness. I'm still too weak against those strong individuals. Even a titled Doloa can kill me. Even if I don't look at the future, I can't say that I'm invincible just by considering my current opponents. Because of my arrival, it's not just Tang San and Shrek's 7 monsters. The fighting strength of the younger generation of Soul Masters has also increased. Compared to the historical situation that I know of, they've become significantly stronger. According to the information that Master told me, many of the Advanced Soul Master Academies that will be participating in the Continental Advanced Soul Master Academy Elite Tournament have Soul Kings. Not only that, but there are at least 4 other Soul Master Academies that can contend against Soul Sages after joining forces. Furthermore, the Martial Soul Hall isn't a spy organization. This information is at most gathered from the results of the exchange competition between the academies or the Great Soul Arena. Those academies aren't made of sand. They definitely won't reveal their strongest strength in those situations. They definitely have many tricks up their sleeve. Therefore, the enemies that I'm facing are definitely stronger than the ones that Master told me about. Wang Kai was naturally very satisfied with his progress. However, as a transmigrator, Wang Kai wasn't a blindly arrogant person. After carefully analyzing the current situation, Wang Kai restrained the arrogance in his heart. After all, if he could only use Emperor Shura's martial soul, Wang Kai's strength would only be comparable to the most ordinary of beginner soul sages. If those soul master teams had other tricks up their sleeves, Wang Kai wasn't confident that he could defeat them alone. Of course, Wang Kai didn't need to fight those teams alone. He also had his own teammates. From what Wang Kai knew, there were at least 3 Soul Kings in the Martial Soul Hall's team: Evil Moon, Hulaina, and Yen. Furthermore, Hulaina and Evil Moon had martial soul fusion skills. Even without him, the Martial Soul Hall's team could still fight against the weakest early-stage Soul Sage. Theoretically speaking, there was no chance of him losing if he teamed up with such a team. Of course, this was only in theory. There was no possibility of failure. For example, in the timeline that Wang Kai knew, Tang San, who was the son of destiny, defeated the golden generation of the Martial Spirit Palace by accident with the support of the will of the world and became the champion of the competition. Compared to the natives of the Doloa continent, Hulaina, Evil Moon, and the others, Wang Kai, who was the conqueror, was strongly rejected by the world's will. On the other hand, Tang San was the child of destiny who was favored by the world's will. Under the influence of the world's will, Wang Kai had to be careful, and even more careful. It's useless to think so much now. The only way is to increase my strength. I've already become a Soul Emperor. It's time to cultivate the 8th level of the Great Arcane Star's Heavenly Suppressing Soul Refining Divine Technique. Several months ago, Xiao Guang had already finished deducing the 8th level of the Great Arcane Star's Heavenly Suppressing Soul Refining Divine Technique and the 64 forms of the Everlasting Blood Spear Technique. Wang Kai had already cultivated the latter to perfection. As for the former, Wang Kai had temporarily set it aside because his control over his soul power wasn't strong enough when he was a Soul King. Of course, now that Wang Kai had successfully become a Soul Emperor, his control over his soul power had reached a new level. Even if he had to construct a soul power vortex in his cerebellum, Wang Kai was still completely confident. However, after fusing and refining so many soul rings, Wang Kai's soul was once again exhausted. If he were to rashly start cultivating now, it was very likely that he would fail due to the exhaustion of his soul. Right now, the best method was to engage in some elegant upper-class activities to relax his soul's progress and tiredness. Mo Shu, come. Daddy has time today. How about Shu play some interesting games with Daddy? With a thought, Wang Kai opened his eyes and affectionately called out to Mo Shu in the distance. That's great. Daddy, I've been looking forward to playing games with you for a long time. I'm coming over now. At this moment, Mo Shu was training her innate skill. When she heard Wang Kai's words, Mo Shu immediately stopped her training and ran over excitedly. Mo Shu is so obedient. Wang Kai smiled and encouraged Mo Shu as he gently stroked her hair. Daddy, come quickly. Mo Shu is ready. Mo Shu urged excitedly as she kissed Wang Kai's forehead. Unlike Chihiro Snow, Ning Yuxian, Dai Qingli, and Zhu Yiling, who received care several times a week, Wang Kai had a certain cultivation mission when he entered the small plane. Hence, he didn't have much time to play elegant games with Mo Shu. On average, Wang Kai would only play elegant games with Mo Shu once or twice a month. Naturally, compared to Chihiro Snow and the other three, Mo Shu was more expectant of Wang Kai's care. Then I'm coming. As he sized up Mo Shu's perfect skin, face, and figure, Wang Kai was admiring her as he undressed her. At the same time, he couldn't help but touch her body. Today, Mo Shu had changed into an elven guard's attire, which made her look even more valiant and heroic. Not only that, but this set of elven attire wasn't as conservative as the attire of human society. It easily outlined Mo Shu's admirable figure, and the two pairs of delectable breasts under her snow-white neck made Wang Kai drool. Looking up, Mo Shu didn't have her usual black hair draped over her shoulders. Instead, she had tied her hair into a pair of cute ponytails. After being born for nearly a year, the smart and studious Mo Shu had successfully grasped most of the common sense in life, which made Wang Kai very satisfied. As for the twin ponytails of a beautiful girl like Mo Shu, Wang Kai naturally couldn't refuse. Daddy, am I pretty? After Wang Kai undressed her, Mo Shu didn't look shy at all. Wang Kai had taught Mo Shu many times not to show her figure in front of other male creatures. However, other male creatures naturally didn't include her. Besides, Mo Shu didn't have a sense of shame like human girls. Naturally, she obeyed Wang Kai's behavior without any resistance. Mo Shu, you're so beautiful. Wang Kai repeatedly praised Mo Shu as he swept his gaze over her exquisite and fair skin. Soon after, he leaned close to Mo Shu, using the sky as his blanket and the earth as his bed, as they began an indescribable battle. Chapter 209. In the blink of an eye, several hours had passed in the intense battle. Although Mo Shu was comparable to a 10,000-year soul beast and had a physique far superior to Chihiro Snow and the other three girls, all of her resistance was futile in front of Wang Kai, who had greater strength and endurance. In the end, Mo Shu was defeated by Wang Kai. Like an injured deer, she curled up into a ball. Her body was filled with indescribable things, and she began to beg for mercy. Mo Shu is so obedient. Daddy will continue to cultivate. After you've rested, you must continue to train hard. Slowly leaving Mo Shu's body, Wang Kai gently placed Mo Shu on the ground. She had already lost her ability to resist, and her eyes were a little dazed. After that, he kissed her lightly on the side of her face. Unlike Chihiro Snow and the others, Mo Shu was clearly less restrained and more proactive when playing games with Wang Kai. While interacting with this wild and beautiful girl, Wang Kai also tasted the wonderful feeling of floating in the clouds. It left him with a rich aftertaste, and the tiredness in his soul completely disappeared. Yes, thank you, Daddy. Although her body was still a little weak, Mo Shu's body and mind were extremely happy. She smiled sweetly at Wang Kai, and Mo Shu revealed a grateful expression. Wang Kai summoned 2 water elements from the small plane and cleaned the filth on his and Mo Shu's bodies. After that, he put on his clothes and walked to the side. Sitting down cross-legged, Wang Kai once again activated the great mystic star's heavenly suppression soul refining divine technique. In the past year and a half, Wang Kai had activated this powerful divine technique over 100 times, and the process of this technique was completely imprinted in Wang Kai's heart. 2 hours passed, and Wang Kai had already completed the first 7 layers of this cultivation method with ease. 7 soul force vortexes had condensed in various parts of Wang Kai's body, and the 63 waves of soul force had also surged through his body. As for the 8th layer of this cultivation method, Wang Kai needed to condense a new soul force vortex in his cerebellum. Let's begin. His eyes flashed with confidence, but Wang Kai's movements were still very careful as he controlled his soul power. Under Wang Kai's control, streaks of soul power flowed continuously through his tendons and meridians to the back of his head. They slowly gathered at Wang Kai's cerebellum, and began to slowly spiral there. Condense for me. When the amount of soul power gathered at his cerebellum reached the required amount, Wang Kai's mind stirred again, and his spiritual power continuously controlled the soul power to slowly speed up the rotation, and finally formed the embryonic form of a soul power vortex. This soul power vortex had just formed when it immediately affected the other soul power in Wang Kai's body and the world's soul power in the small plane. In an instant, boundless soul power flowed through Wang Kai's pores and into Wang Kai's sea of consciousness, and then flowed through his tendons and meridians towards his head, and unceasingly promoted the growth of the soul power vortex in his cerebellum. Time passed by minute, and under Wang Kai's control and the feedback of the soul power vortex itself, the soul power vortex in Wang Kai's cerebellum finally formed, and miraculously resonated with the other soul power vortexes in Wang Kai's body. Suddenly, Wang Kai felt that the amount of soul force entering his body had increased by a large amount, and the astral power entering his mind had also become more vigorous. Wang Kai revealed a smile, and then began to refine the soul force and astral power that had entered his body. Close to an hour passed, and another 9 waves of soul power surged through Wang Kai's tendons and meridians. After the cultivation ended, Wang Kai also began to disperse the soul power vortexes in his body one by one, and finally stood up with a smile on his face. Cultivating the zenith star heavenly suppressing soul refining divine art, Source Experience plus 2270. Cultivating the zenith star heavenly suppressing soul refining divine art, spiritual power increased, 1 mind 31 tasks, 2% to 4%. Refining the remaining medicinal power in your body, Source Experience plus 60. Just as Wang Kai opened his eyes, 3 system notifications sounded in Wang Kai's sea of consciousness. This is great. The experience gained from cultivation has almost tripled compared to before. Although the difficulty of creating a new soul power vortex is slightly higher, once it's done, its effects are really amazing. It seems like I'm completely confident that I can become a rank 63 Soul Emperor before the Soul Master Tournament. Standing up, Wang Kai immediately left the small plane and returned to the Dolua continent. A week later, after fusing and refining his martial soul, Wang Kai didn't have too many missions, and only took time out every day to familiarize himself with his new body and new soul skills. In his free time, Wang Kai, Chihiro Snow and the other girls rested and played for a week, and his body and mind were well rested. A week later, Wang Kai went to report to Sendoryu again, and then rushed to the Martial Spirit Temple with Li Ning. When they arrived at the entrance of the Martial Spirit Temple and confirmed Wang Kai's identity and purpose, the temple knight guarding the Martial Spirit Temple immediately welcomed Wang Kai in. After passing through some tall and mighty buildings, the temple knight brought the 2 of them to a training ground in the center of the Martial Spirit Temple. On the training ground, 2 teams of young soul masters were training against each other, and there were a few teachers watching from the side. Among these young soul masters, Wang Kai immediately saw the 3 members of the Martial Spirit Temple's Golden Generation, Yen, Hulaina, and Evil Moon, and then used the appraisal eye to observe their attributes. Only 3 levels higher on average? It seems like the other Advanced Soul Master Academy's Soul Masters have such a huge increase in strength, and it's definitely the work of the world's will. From the appraisal eye, Wang Kai found out that Yen and Evil Moon were only rank 55, and Hulaina was only rank 54. Then, he frowned. One had to know that compared to the original timeline, Wang Kai's enemies had an average increase of 7 or 8 levels, and Wang Kai's teammates only had an increase of 3 levels. Wang Kai wouldn't believe that the world's will wasn't a coward. Just as Wang Kai was observing the strength of the Martial Spirit Temple's team, the battle in the training ground had already ended. Hulaina and the other 2 were in the Martial Spirit Temple's first team, and their average strength was about 3 to 5 levels higher than their opponents, the Martial Spirit Temple's second team. Therefore, they defeated their opponents with a little effort. Alright, everyone take a rest. Those who are injured, receive treatment from the healing type and food type soul masters. Those who aren't injured, reflect on your mistakes and shortcomings in the battle. Now I would like to introduce a new member of the first team, who is also the Holy Son of the Martial Spirit Temple, your future captain, His Highness Wang Kai. After the battle, an old teacher also walked forward, and while instructing both sides to take a rest, he also introduced Wang Kai to the team members. Chapter 210. Hello everyone, I'm Wang Kai, a rank 62 Soul Emperor. My martial soul is Shura, and I'm also the new Holy Son of the Martial Spirit Hall. As a member of the Martial Spirit Hall, I have the responsibility and confidence to lead everyone to defeat the other teams. In the end, I'll represent the Martial Spirit Hall to become the champion of the Continental Advanced Soul Master Academy tournament. Bringing Li Ning to the center of the training ground, Wang Kai swept his gaze across the 20 members of the Martial Spirit Hall's Team 1 and Team 2. Following which, he revealed a confident and sunny smile. Seeing that Wang Kai had finished speaking, Li Ning, who was behind Wang Kai, also took a step forward. Standing half a step behind Wang Kai, he said, "Greetings to all the young talents of the Martial Spirit Hall. My name is Li Ning, a rank 81 Soul Dolu. My martial soul is the Tiger Soul Blade. I will also be one of your future instructors and tactical instructors. I hope that everyone will listen to my orders in the future. Everyone will work hard together to defeat the enemy and become the champion of the tournament." After Wang Kai and Li Ning had introduced themselves, the other 4 instructors also introduced themselves to Wang Kai and Li Ning. They were Martial Spirit Hall's Team 1 Instructor Su Yun, a rank 74 Soul Sage. Martial Soul, Purple Smoke Sword. Martial Spirit Hall's Team 1 Instructor Lin Xiaoya, a rank 67 Soul Emperor. Martial Soul, Ink Feather Vulture. Martial Spirit Hall's Team 2 Instructor Yi Xian, a rank 72 Soul Sage. Martial Soul, Crimson Lightning Scorpion. Martial Spirit Hall's Team 2 Instructor Nie Tianxin, a rank 62 Soul Emperor. Martial Soul, Gray Patterned Shield. After the 4 instructors finished introducing themselves, a black-haired, black-robed, skinny youth who was originally sitting to the side walked in front of Wang Kai. Following which, he coldly said, "Evil Moon, a rank 55 Soul King. Martial Soul, Moonblade. Please advise me." Hello, Evil Moon. I can see that you seem to be very dissatisfied with my arrival. I know you're the former captain of Team Number 1 of Martial Spirit Palace. But now that I'm here, you have to listen to my command. If you don't listen to my commands or cause trouble, I won't allow you to fight even if you're the second strongest person in our team after me and have a martial soul fusion skill with your sister, Hulaina. Do you understand? Looking at Evil Moon, who was obviously unconvinced in his eyes, Wang Kai just smiled faintly and said faintly, "I understand, Lord Saint." Hearing Wang Kai's words, Evil Moon's eyes showed a trace of anger, and his hands clenched into fists. His position as team leader had been taken away by someone else, and the person who took his position was still so arrogant. It was impossible for anyone to not be angry when faced with such a situation. However, Evil Moon also knew that Wang Kai's strength was far stronger than his. Furthermore, he was the holy son of Martial Spirit Palace. If he really didn't cooperate, Wang Kai did have the right to make him unable to fight. Therefore, he could only nod his head helplessly in agreement. After Evil Moon finished his introduction, he left. Immediately, a purple-haired girl walked up gracefully. This young girl's skin was snow-white, tender, and smooth. Her face was very delicate and pretty, and her facial features were extremely small and cute. Her pair of big, watery eyes that were like purple gems could move one's soul, and her long purple hair that draped behind her added a bit of mysterious charm to her. At the same time, this girl's figure was extremely hot. Her enchanting curves outlined the pair of towering, round breasts in front of her. Her volume was one size larger than Chihiro Snow and the other three girls. Looking down, the girl's slender waist and plump, straight, and long legs vividly displayed the mature charm of a woman. If Chihiro Snow's beauty was a kind of holy beauty that people couldn't help but want to violate, and if Ning Yuxian's beauty was a kind of gentle and elegant feminine beauty, then Hu Laiina's beauty in front of Wang Kai was the kind of mature big sister's beauty that was full of seduction and endless charm. Your Highness Holy Son, I'm Hu Laiina, a level 54 Soul King, Martial Soul. Heavenly Fox. I'm also the sister of the previous Soul Master, Evil Moon. Please guide me in the future, Lord Saint. After coming to Wang Kai's side, Hu Laiina bowed slightly and spoke. Hu Laiina's voice was very pleasant to the ears, but it seemed to be able to attract one's attention. It was very clear that Hu Laiina had used the special characteristics of her martial soul to secretly charm Wang Kai as she spoke. Yes, I've heard of Miss Hu Laiina's good name. I'm very happy to be able to fight side by side with Miss Hu Laiina. I heard that you and your brother, Evil Moon, have a very powerful martial soul fusion skill. Together with the other team members, you can even fight against a soul sage. This is very rare. However, I've discovered that Evil Moon seems to be a little unhappy that I took away his position as team leader. You have to persuade him well and let our team unite as one so that everyone can improve together. Do you understand? Towards Hu Laiina's charm, Wang Kai was naturally completely immune to it. In terms of spiritual power alone, although Hu Laiina's spiritual power was far superior to those of the same level, Wang Kai's spiritual power was much stronger than Hu Laiina's. In addition, Wang Kai also had a martial soul with a strong will like Emperor Shura to protect his soul. Although Hu Laiina was very beautiful, her charm naturally had no effect on Wang Kai. Yes, I understand, Your Highness Holy Son. It's an honor for us to be able to fight side by side with Your Highness Holy Son. I'll definitely guide Evil Moon well, and not let him throw a tantrum. Although Hu Laiina knew that it was unlikely that she could charm Wang Kai, seeing that Wang Kai was completely immune to her charm, Hu Laiina's beautiful eyes revealed a look of surprise and admiration. After bowing to Wang Kai seriously, Hu Laiina immediately turned and walked back to Evil Moon's side. Next up was the third person of the Martial Soul Hall's golden generation, Yen. This was a tall and sturdy man with a head full of red hair. His entire body seemed to be emitting a faint heat. Coming in front of Wang Kai, Yen Shou bowed first, then said with a rough voice, Lord Holy Son, I'm Yen, a rank 55 Soul King. My martial soul is Flame Lord. I'm a person who respects the strong. Lord Holy Son is stronger than me, so I'll definitely listen to your orders. However, I also hope that you can give me a few pointers. Of course, that's not a problem. In the future, during our free time during training, we can learn from each other and improve together. Looking at Yen, who looked very straightforward in front of him, Wang Kai nodded slightly at him, then returned a kind smile. Chapter 211. After the 3 members of the Golden Generation introduced themselves to Wang Kai, the other members of Team 1 came forward to introduce themselves to Wang Kai and greeted him. They were Jiang Jing, male, Control-type Soul Master, rank 49. Martial Soul. Skyscraper Vine. Yu Hao, male, Agility-type Soul Master, rank 51. Martial Soul. Tempest Leopard. Su Jia, male, Defense-type Soul Master, rank 48. Martial Soul. Gold-eyed Pentaflower Elephant. Fang Gulan, female, Auxiliary-type Soul Master, rank 47. Martial Soul. Exquisite Book. Jiang Qi, female, Healing-type Soul Master, rank 45. Martial Soul. Pearl of Healing. Su Rui, male, Food-type Soul Master, rank 44. Martial Soul. Crispy Biscuit. Li Yuemeng, female, Auxiliary-type Soul Master, rank 46. Martial Soul. 6-colored Ring. Of the 7 remaining members of the Hall of Martial Spirits, only one of them was a Soul King. The rest of them were all mid-stage Soul Ancestors and above. Although Wang Kai didn't know the ranks of the other members of Team 1 in the original timeline, he knew that their soul power ranks had increased compared to Wang Kai's opponents, but it was very limited and wouldn't be of much help to him. After the members of Team 1 of Martial Spirit Palace introduced themselves, the members of Team 2 of Martial Spirit Palace also introduced themselves to Wang Kai one after another. In the second team of the Martial Soul Hall, only the captain, Jin Wei, had reached the level of a Soul King. The other team members were of different ranks, but on average, they were 3 ranks lower than the first team. Although Jin Wei was relatively strong, his martial soul was an assault-type martial soul. However, Evil Moon and Yen were already in Team 1 of the Martial Soul Hall. If he were to join them, Jin Wei wouldn't have much of a chance to fight due to the different combinations of Soul Masters. Therefore, he was sent to Team 2 as the captain instead of Team 1. After getting to know these members of the Martial Soul Hall team, who were also his future teammates, Wang Kai immediately walked towards the area where the Martial Soul Hall team was located. He started to recall the rules of the Continental Advanced Soul Master Academy Tournament. The Continental Elite Academy Tournament was held once every 5 years. It was sponsored and funded by the royal families of the Heaven Do Empire and Star Luo Empire. The Martial Soul Hall was in charge of organizing, supervising, and hosting the tournament. It was the grandest tournament in the world of Soul Masters, and was also a famous event on the Dolua continent. As the name implied, the Continental Elite Academy Tournament was a tournament that only academies that were dedicated to nurturing soul elders and above had the qualifications to participate. On the Dolua continent, there were about 150 academies that were registered. Every academy would receive an invitation and a quota from the Martial Soul Hall before the tournament. Of course, not every academy had the right to participate in the competition. The official Advanced Soul Master Academies of the 2 empires that provided the funds would receive an additional right to participate in the tournament, while the Martial Soul Hall's subordinate Advanced Soul Master Academies would also receive 2 rights to participate in the tournament. There were 2 hard rules in the Continental Advanced Soul Master Academy Elite Tournament as well. Firstly, the participating academies had to be under the age of 25. This would be tested by both the Martial Soul Hall and the 2 empires' Soul Masters. If anyone dared to cheat, the academy would be severely punished. Furthermore, every participating academy had to ensure that there were at least 7 people participating in each round. Secondly, during the tournament, Soul Masters had to learn from each other in a friendly manner. They had to do their best to avoid leaving their opponents with permanent injuries, and they couldn't allow any deaths. If someone killed their opponent, regardless of whether it was intentional or not, the academy would have to bear the corresponding losses and be expelled from the tournament. They would also be stripped of their qualifications to participate in the next 3 rounds. Although such a rule might restrict the performance of the participating Soul Masters to a certain extent, the two empires and the Martial Soul Hall's goal in organizing this Advanced Soul Master Academy tournament wasn't to let the various academies fight to the death and determine who was better. Instead, it was to select the most talented and powerful young Soul Masters and recruit them under their command. Apart from this, the students who could represent the Advanced Academy tournament were all the most outstanding talents in their respective academies. They were also the future of the Dolua continent's Soul Master world. Nobody wanted them to die in vain. Nurturing a high-ranked Soul Master wasn't easy. Even though there were over 100 million people on the Dolua continent, the number of people who could break through to become a Soul Scholar and Soul Master didn't exceed 10 million. It could even be said that 1 in 100 was chosen. Furthermore, there were talented students who could become Soul Elders before the age of 20. They had limitless potential. Therefore, although these rules made the tournament less exciting, they also protected the young Soul Masters to the greatest extent. It was a good thing that had more advantages than disadvantages. Apart from these two rigid rules, the remaining rules were more standardized and more complicated. The purpose of these rules was to ensure that the tournament was as fair as possible. Firstly, the Soul Masters on stage couldn't use any medicine or food that wasn't created by a food or healing type Soul Master. Furthermore, only the food or healing type Soul Masters had the right to replenish their team members. In other words, if one wanted to replenish their team members on stage, the corresponding food or healing type Soul Master had to occupy a spot on stage. This prevented the possibility of a team with a food or healing type Soul Master cheating. Secondly, Soul Masters couldn't use weapons that didn't have martial souls or soul skills. They also couldn't use any form or type of soul tools. Once they did, the Soul Master would be banned from participating in the tournament. However, the Academy wouldn't receive any additional punishment. To Wang Kai, these rules hadn't changed because of his arrival. This was also good news. Although he'd snatched away the poisonous treasures in the Icefire Yin-Yang well, Tang San wouldn't have any problems finding other poisonous plants under the influence of the world's will. In the original timeline, Wang Kai's hidden weapons were enough to threaten a Soul Sage when he was still a Soul Ancestor. If Tang San was allowed to use hidden weapons, the threat that Tang San posed to Hui Yuhao would definitely increase by a large margin. Apart from this, there were also rules that forbade the use of evil techniques that could temporarily increase one's soul force. They also forbade the Academy from harming a Soul Master's potential in order to temporarily increase their strength. I won't go into details here. Chapter 212. After Wang Kai joined Team 1, the training and battles between the two teams of Martial Spirit Hall began once again in full swing. Before Wang Kai's arrival, the training between the two teams of the Martial Spirit Palace was often a 7-person battle royale. But because the strength of the Martial Spirit Palace's team was far stronger than the second team, and they also had Evil Moon and Hu Liena's martial soul fusion skill, they could always easily defeat the members of the second team. Of course, the members of Team 2 of Martial Spirit Palace could learn a lot from such a battle. However, the members of Team 1 didn't need to face such a challenge. However, this situation completely changed with the arrival of Wang Kai. After Wang Kai joined the team, Li Ning and Wang Kai proposed that the other members of Team 1 would fight against Wang Kai alone. In the beginning, the members of Team 1 were shocked by this crazy idea. Although these members were at most mid-stage Soul Kings, Wang Kai was only a low-stage Soul Emperor. They didn't believe that the 7 of them couldn't defeat Wang Kai alone. After all, they weren't the kind of old Soul Masters who had exhausted their potential to barely advance. They were geniuses in the prime of their lives with unlimited potential, and also the strongest of the new generation of Martial Spirit Hall. Although they were very confident in their own strength, they realized how naive their thinking was after they started fighting with Wang Kai. In their battles with Wang Kai again and again, although they constantly improved their tactics and improved their strength, they were still defeated by Wang Kai time and time again. After experiencing Wang Kai's strength, all the members of Team 1 had a unanimous admiration and trust for Wang Kai. Even Evil Moon, who was quite critical of Wang Kai at the beginning, was obedient to Wang Kai's orders. Even the beautiful, charming, and sexy Hulaina secretly had feelings for Wang Kai. In the process of fighting with the members of Team 1, Wang Kai wasn't without gains. Even though their cultivations were much lower than Wang Kai's, they were still very strong. They were geniuses who had experienced hundreds of battles, and when they worked together, they had the same fighting strength as Wang Kai when he only used the Azura Emperor. They were strong enough to fight an early-stage Soul King. Therefore, although Wang Kai could rely on his strong endurance to defeat them, Wang Kai had to expend a lot of energy in the process. Moreover, after every battle with Wang Kai, these team members would learn from their failures. Their teamwork would constantly improve, and their strength would soar with a whoosh. However, Wang Kai had also benefited from these battles. His combat awareness had improved in these bitter battles, especially when he was fighting against a group of people. He had gained a lot of experience in actual combat. Of course, Wang Kai couldn't always be the opponent of Team 1. After all, in the future Continental Advanced Soul Master Academy Elite Tournament, they weren't opponents, but teammates who needed to fight against enemies together. They needed to build mutual trust and tacit understanding. Therefore, after fighting for a period of time, Wang Kai no longer fought with these team members, but joined their team to fight together. With Wang Kai's addition, the members of Team 1 for the group battle were determined. They were Wang Kai, Evil Moon, Hulaina, Yen, Yu Hao, Su Rui, and Li Yuemeng. There were a total of 3 Assault-type Soul Masters, 1 Agility-type Soul Master, 1 Support-type Soul Master, 1 Domination-type Soul Master, and 1 Food-type Soul Master. As for the remaining members, it wasn't that they wouldn't fight, but that they would be the substitutes of Team 1. They would choose to fight based on the situation of their opponent. After Wang Kai joined, the overall strength of the first team of the Martial Spirit Hall had greatly increased. As a result, their opponents were no longer the second team of the Martial Spirit Hall, but Li Ning, Su Yun, Yi Xian, and the other Soul Sage instructors. After training day after day, Wang Kai and these members developed a certain level of tacit understanding, and their cooperation became better and better. Time flew by, and half a year passed in the blink of an eye. Wang Kai had successfully broken through to become a rank 63 Soul Emperor, while the members of the Martial Soul Hall's first team had also increased in strength. Several of them had successfully advanced by a rank. At this moment, the Continental Advanced Soul Master Academy Elite Tournament had officially begun. The first competition was the Soul Master Tournament's qualifiers. There were more than 100 Advanced Soul Master Academies participating in the Soul Master Tournament. If more than 100 Advanced Soul Master Academies were to compete, the number of matches would be too many. Therefore, the Martial Soul Hall divided the tournament into 3 stages: the qualifiers, the promotion stage, and the finals. The first stage was naturally the qualifiers. Unlike the promotion stage and the finals, the qualifiers were held in different regions. Other than the Martial Soul Hall, the Heaven Do Imperial Academy, and the Star Luo Imperial Academy, who had the right to send a team, the other teams had to compete in pairs to obtain the right to enter the promotion stage. There were a total of 32 spots for the promotion stage. Other than the 3 guaranteed teams, the remaining 29 spots would be divided equally between the Heaven Do Empire and the Star Luo Empire. Considering that the Star Luo Empire's overall strength was stronger, the Heaven Do Empire had a total of 14 spots, while the Star Luo Empire had 15. Of course, the Star Luo Empire didn't get an extra spot for no reason. This was because Team 2 of the Martial Soul Hall would go to the Star Luo Empire to compete together. In other words, if the Star Luo Empire's team could eliminate Team 2 of the Martial Soul Hall, they would obtain an extra spot. But if they failed, the spot would belong to Team 2 of the Martial Soul Hall. They would only have 14 spots like the Heaven Do Empire. Within the two empires, the qualifiers were further divided into regions. Using the Heaven Do Empire as an example, all the advanced Soul Master Academies within the Heaven Do Empire that didn't belong to the other kingdoms and dukedoms would participate in the qualifiers in the Heaven Do City region. The advanced Soul Envoys of the other kingdoms and dukedoms would participate in the qualifiers according to their country. The Heaven Do Empire had a total of 4 kingdoms and 1 dukedom. In other words, including the Heaven Do City region, the Heaven Do Empire had a total of 6 regions for the qualifiers. Other than Team 2 of the Heaven Do Imperial Academy's team that was guaranteed to enter the finals, these 6 regions would compete for the remaining 14 spots. Among these regions, the Heaven Do City region had the most advanced Soul Master Academies, and it was also a region directly under the Heaven Do Empire. Thus, 5 spots would qualify for the qualifiers. As for the other 4 kingdoms and 1 dukedom, each region would have 1 or 2 spots. The Star Luo Empire's situation was almost the same as the Heaven Do Empire's. However, Team 2 of the Martial Soul Hall would compete in the Star Luo Empire's region. Chapter 213. As the first team of the Martial Soul Hall, Wang Kai and the other team members naturally had the right to enter the qualifying round. As for the second team of the Martial Soul Hall, they left the Martial Soul Hall for the Star Luo Empire a week before the start of the qualifiers to fight for a spot in the qualifying round. Unlike the original timeline, the qualifiers for this year's Continental Advanced Soul Master Academy tournament were still held in the 2 empires, and the format of the tournament was still a team battle. However, the promotion tournament after the qualifiers wasn't held in the 2 empires. Instead, it was held in Martial Soul Saint City. Other than that, the format of the promotion tournament had also changed. A month later, the qualifiers in the Heaven Do Empire and the Star Luo Empire had finished. 29 teams had won and successfully entered the qualifying round. After that, they would rush to the Martial Soul Holy City with the Heaven Do Imperial Academy and the Star Luo Imperial Academy. They would meet up with the first team of the Martial Soul Hall that Wang Kai was in and participate in the qualifying round after the qualifiers. Among the teams from the Heaven Do Empire, there were the Blazing Fire Academy, Skywater Academy, Botany Academy, and other names that Wang Kai was familiar with. Of course, Shrek Academy, where Tang San and Shrek's 7 monsters were from, was also on the list. As for the Star Luo Empire, the second team of the Martial Soul Hall had obtained a spot in the qualifying round with their strength. The other 14 academies that Wang Kai wasn't familiar with stood out. As for the strength of these academies, the Martial Soul Hall had done a certain amount of sorting. Although these academies definitely wouldn't reveal their full strength in the qualifiers, their ranks couldn't be faked. The effects and weaknesses of some of the soul skills they'd used before were also exposed. As expected, all of Shrek's 7 monsters had become much more powerful than in the original timeline. Tang San, the leader of the Shrek's 7 monsters, had reached rank 54, which was a full 13 ranks higher than in the original timeline. As for the other 6 members of Shrek's 7 monsters, their strength wasn't as frightening as Tang San's, but they had all increased by 8 ranks or more. The drastic increase in Shrek's 7 monsters' powers was naturally within Wang Kai's expectations. This was one of the measures that the world had taken to resist the will of the world. Of course, although Tang San was the child of destiny and had the blessings of the world's will, it was impossible for the world's will to raise the rank of a soul master without limit. On top of that, Wang Kai had also successfully taken Tang San's ice-fire yin-yang well. As such, even though Tang San and Shrek's 7 monsters had become significantly more powerful, they were still within Wang Kai's control. As for the students from the other advanced Soul Master Academies, their strength wasn't as frightening as Shrek's 7 monsters, but they had also improved significantly. Soul Masters like Feng Xiaotian, Yu Tianheng, and Huo Wuxuang, who had received the blessings of the world's will, were only slightly inferior to the other 6 monsters. The strength of these advanced Soul Master Academies had naturally increased as well. Another week passed. Finally, all the qualified teams had arrived at Martial Soul Holy City. At the same time, the Star Luo Empire's Emperor Diaotian, the Heaven Do Empire's Emperor Shuiyi, the nobles of the 2 empires, and the sect master of the 7 treasures glazed sect, Ning Fengji, had all arrived to participate in the competition. The Continental Advanced Soul Master Academy Elite Tournament had officially begun. 3 days later, in the Martial Soul Hall's Martial Soul Holy City, a grand opening ceremony for the Continental Advanced Soul Master Academy Elite Tournament was held in Martial Soul Holy City. As the grandest tournament in the world of Soul Masters, this tournament wasn't just a tournament that attracted Soul Masters from all over the Dolua continent. It was also a grand event for the citizens of Martial Soul Holy City and the entire continent. Although the majority of the commoners didn't have the qualifications or wealth to buy tickets to watch the tournament, the process and results of the tournament would be published in various newspapers. These newspapers were quickly sold out by the passionate commoners. These commoners also enthusiastically participated in the competition and competed for the winning teams. Yes, although the majority of the humans on the Dolua continent didn't have the qualifications to cultivate, who didn't desire to become a powerful soul master. Therefore, although they couldn't participate in the tournament, the commoners were filled with passion for this tournament. It was just like how people on the blue planet were passionate about the Olympics. The opening ceremony for the promotion tournament was held in Martial Soul Holy City's Great Soul Arena. A month ago, the tickets for the opening ceremony had been completely booked by Soul Masters, nobles, and sects. Although the tickets for the worst seats cost 500 gold soul coins, the Martial Soul Palace still generously released a batch of free tickets. As long as your cultivation reached the level of a Soul Master, and you were willing to watch the tournament, you could choose to draw lots. If your luck was good enough, you could watch this once every 5 years continental feast for free. In order to prepare for the upcoming opening ceremony and the promotion tournament, the Martial Soul Holy City's Great Soul Arena had stopped all soul dueling competitions long before the qualifiers began. The interior of the Great Soul Arena had been remodeled. All the sub-arenas and the main arena had been merged into one, forming an incomparably huge arena. After the remodeling, the Great Soul Arena could accommodate close to 100,000 spectators to watch the tournament at the same time. In addition, the area closest to the tournament was reserved as VIP seats for the Martial Soul Palace, the 2 empires, the various large sects, and the members of the academies who had entered the promotion tournament to rest and watch the tournament. Early in the morning, the sun had just risen from the east. The remodeled Great Soul Arena already had a large number of spectators. The spectators naturally didn't come so early to enter the arena, because every ticket had a special seat number. They wanted to be able to see the participating young soul masters up close on the first day of the opening ceremony. Among them, there were quite a few young girls. The number of soul masters on the entire Dolua continent added up to only 1 million. The students who could represent the advanced Soul Master Academies in the tournament were the cream of the crop. With the age limit of 25 years old, they were undoubtedly the most ideal targets in the hearts of young girls. If they could marry a powerful soul master, it would definitely be a wonderful thing for them to gain both fame and fortune. Even some of the nobles who had bought tickets to the VIP area had gathered outside the Great Soul Arena at this time. Soul Masters were very important strategic forces, so the nobles had always been happy to recruit Soul Masters. The Continental Advanced Soul Master Academy Elite Tournament was a cradle for talent. Not to mention the teams that could defeat numerous strong opponents and advance to the next round, even the participating students would be fought over by the nobles and clans. Chapter 214. At this moment, with the martial soul sacred city's great soul fighting arena as the center, almost a third of the city was empty. Although many citizens of martial soul sacred city didn't have the qualifications to enter the great soul fighting arena to watch the opening ceremony, they could still admire the grace of the continent's geniuses from outside. Although they couldn't cultivate, the mysterious soul masters were naturally the envy of all the citizens of the Doloa continent. To be able to come in close contact with genius soul masters, these citizens naturally didn't tire of it. Martial Soul Sacred City's great soul fighting arena was surrounded by 3 layers inside and 3 layers outside. In addition, a large number of high-grade soul masters, nobles, and sect members from the Heaven Do Empire and Star Luo Empire came to Martial Soul Sacred City to watch the competition. Since a few days ago, all the hotels and inns in Martial Soul Sacred City of all sizes were full, and the population of the huge Martial Soul Sacred City had increased by nearly 30%. From this, it could be seen how attractive the Continental Advanced Soul Master Academy tournament was to people. Wang Kai and the other 11 members of the Martial Soul Hall's team, as well as the 3 instructors Li Ning, Su Yun, and Lin Xiaoye, had already changed into the standard attire of the Martial Soul Hall's members and set off for the Great Soul Fighting Arena from the Martial Soul Temple. When they were still a kilometer away from the Great Soul Fighting Arena, the road was already crowded. Along the way, there were residents and guests who had come to watch the competition. In order to deal with such a situation, Martial Soul Sacred City had already mobilized over 10,000 city guards and soul masters to maintain order in the vicinity of the Great Soul Fighting Arena. This was to prevent too many spectators from causing a stampede or a riot, and to ensure that the participating teams could enter the arena normally. Under the envious and admiring gazes of the spectators on both sides, Wang Kai and the others entered the Great Soul Fighting Arena and went to the preparation hall to wait. The first part of the opening ceremony was for the various Soul Master Academies to enter the arena and introduce themselves. Therefore, all the Soul Master Academies were resting in the preparation hall, and would only officially appear when the competition officially began. After arriving at the resting room, Wang Kai began to observe the other teams that had also arrived at the preparation hall. Because they were familiar with the route, the team of Martial Spirit Palace was the first to arrive. There were only 2 teams that had arrived earlier than them. One of the 2 teams was wearing a beautiful purple uniform, embroidered with flourishing patterns and the logo of the academy. According to the information, this team was from the Star Luo Empire's Purple Rainbow Academy. The other team that had arrived at the same time was from the Heaven Do Empire's School of Botany. The members of this team were all dressed in green, and there were badges on their chests that represented different plants. Seeing the team of Martial Spirit Palace arriving, the members of the 2 teams immediately cast their eyes on them. As one of the 3 teams that were directly guaranteed to enter the promotion round, the Martial Soul Hall's first team had never revealed their strength. As the strongest power in the entire Doloa continent, the team that the Martial Soul Hall sent out would naturally attract the attention of the other teams. Looking at the concerned gazes of these team members, Wang Kai responded with a faint smile. At the same time, he used his probing eye to observe the strength of these 2 team members. Under Wang Kai's observing eye, the strengths of the 2 teams also appeared clearly in Wang Kai's mind. The captain of the School of Botany's team was at rank 48, while the rest of the team members were at least rank 43. They were much weaker than the Martial Soul Hall's second team. The Purple Rainbow Academy's team members from the Star Luo Empire were slightly stronger. Their captain's soul power was at rank 51, while the rest of the team members were at least rank 45. Everyone's gazes slowly met each other's eyes before quickly shifting away. After observing their opponents, the members of the 2 teams once again gathered together to discuss. Wang Kai and the other members of the Martial Soul Hall's first team also sat down to chat. As time passed, team after team walked into the preparation hall. Wang Kai was rather familiar with the Heaven Do Imperial Family Academy's team, the Thunder Academy's team, the Blazing Academy's team, and other teams from the Heaven Do Empire. Wang Kai also saw Yu Tianheng, Hu Wushuang, Hu Wu, and the rest with his own eyes. Of course, there were a few teams that Wang Kai wasn't familiar with. Most of these teams came from the Star Luo Empire, and didn't appear in the original timeline. Wang Kai only knew about these teams from the information he had, but didn't know much about them. At this time, there was a sudden commotion outside the hall. Then, a group of beautiful girls wearing blue team uniforms with blue ice lace on their legs walked in from the entrance of the preparation hall. They had beautiful figures and different temperaments, but all of them were extremely pure. Seeing this group of beautiful girls, almost all the male students in the preparation hall were attracted to them. Wang Kai was naturally no exception. Even many female students couldn't help but look at them with admiration. This group of girls was naturally the team members from the Heaven Do Empire's Skywater Academy. This academy only recruited female students with water-type martial souls, and they only accepted beauties. This was also the reason why the Skywater Academy's team members were all beauties. Standing at the front of the Skywater Academy's team were two blue-haired sisters who looked almost identical. They were clearly the Skywater Academy's team leader, Shui Bing-er, and her sister, Shui Yu-er. Looking at Shui Bing-er, she was about 1.65 meters tall, and her figure was perfect. She wasn't exaggeratedly voluptuous, but she wasn't the skinny type either. Her skin was like snow, soft and smooth, and was pleasing to the eye. Her long blue hair was draped over Shui Bing-er's snow-white back, and her fair face was adorned with incomparably exquisite facial features. Her eyes were like pools of clear water, and when she looked around, she had an elegant and noble temperament that made people feel ashamed of their own inferiority, and didn't dare to blaspheme her. However, her cold arrogance and quick-wittedness had a soul-sucking aura that made people captivated. She was truly a great beauty in the world. Shui Yu-er, who was beside Shui Bing-er, was also extremely beautiful. Her appearance was almost the same as her sister's, and she also had snow-white skin and a beautiful face. However, compared to her sister, Shui Yu-er's figure was clearly more voluptuous and enchanting. Shui Yu-er's slender waist swayed as she walked, and her perfect figure was vividly displayed. Her pair of deep and clear blue eyes were like sapphires, and her quick-witted facial features were impeccable. All the team members around her felt a kind of shock in their hearts, as if all the good fortune in the world had gathered on her. Chapter 2:15. In the preparation hall, almost all the male members cast their gazes towards the members of the Skywater Academy team. Among the 10 members of the Skywater Academy team, the two sisters, Shui Bing-er and Shui Yu-er, attracted 90% of the gazes. The main reason why Shui Bing-er and Shui Yu-er could attract the gazes of so many male members was naturally because of their otherworldly and pure appearance. Although the other members of the Skywater Academy team could also be called beauties, when compared to the two sisters, they were like dust on the ground meeting the stars in the sky. They really paled in comparison. In addition to their beauty, Shui Bing-er and Shui Yu-er's attributes naturally attracted the gazes of countless people. For any normal male, enjoying the service of a pair of beautiful sisters with almost no difference in appearance and finally eating them together was definitely one of their ultimate dreams. And for Wang Kai, who came from the cerulean star, it was even more so. Although Wang Kai's family already had 5 beauties, Chihiro Snow, Ning Yuxian, Dai Qingli, Zhu Yiling, and Mo Shu, Wang Kai's family didn't have any sisters like Shui Bing-er and Shui Yu. Therefore, after seeing Shui Bing-er and Shui Yu-er's appearance, Wang Kai's mouth was watering. Although Shui Bing-er and Shui Yu-er's appearance was still slightly lacking compared to the other 5 girls in Wang Kai's family, the difference between them was only a fine line. In addition to the sisters' attributes, Wang Kai had already decided to add 2 new members to his family, and also found 2 new sisters for Chihiro Snow and Shui Yu. Heroes love beauties, and beauties love heroes. While the male students in the preparation hall were admiring the beauties of the Skywater Academy, how could the beauties of the Skywater Academy not be sizing up the young talents present? Among all the male students present, Wang Kai suddenly stood out from the rest of the female students of Skywater Academy. On one hand, it was naturally because of Wang Kai's handsome appearance and his unique and sunny temperament. On the other hand, it was also because of Wang Kai's identity as the captain of the continent's strongest Martial Spirit Palace battle team. The uniforms of the members of Martial Spirit Palace were very recognizable, and Wang Kai's uniform showed his identity as the leader. As the champions of the Soul Master Tournament in the past, the team sent by the Martial Soul Hall naturally attracted the most attention. As the team leader of this team, Wang Kai naturally won a lot of attention. Miss Shui Bing Miss Shui nice to meet you. I'm Wang Kai, the leader of Team 1 of the Martial Spirit Palace. I welcome all of you beauties to our Martial Spirit Holy City to participate in this grand gathering of Soul Masters. It's really a blessing for all the participating teams to have the honor of competing on the same stage with all of you beautiful ladies. Although Wang Kai, like the other members of the Martial Soul Hall, admired the graceful and beautiful sisters, he still had Chihiro Snow and 5 other wives who were not inferior to Shui Bing and Shui Yu in terms of appearance. Therefore, he didn't lose his composure like the other male students. Instead, he revealed a bright and sunny smile as he walked up and enthusiastically extended his right hand. Ah, Wang Kai, are you the new holy son of Martial Spirit Palace, Your Highness Wang Kai? I'm the team leader of Skywater Academy, Shui Bing. It's an honor for Your Highness Wang Kai to personally receive us. Although Shui Bing hadn't seen Wang Kai's true appearance, the news of Wang Kai being crowned as the holy son of Martial Spirit Palace had been published in the newspaper. Naturally, she had heard of this name before. She immediately recalled Wang Kai's identity, and her heart beat slightly faster due to nervousness. However, when she saw Wang Kai's generous and handsome face, the nervousness in her heart seemed to have subsided by a lot. She also took the initiative to shake Wang Kai's hand with her slender snow-white hand behind her. Hearing Shui Bing's question, Wang Kai also nodded slightly to express his confirmation. At this time, the conversation between Wang Kai and Shui Bing had also interrupted the other male students in the preparation hall from their surprise at the sight of Shui Bing and Shui Yu. Seeing Wang Kai holding Shui Bing's jade-like hand, the male students felt as if their goddess had been snatched away from them. They were all secretly upset. On the other hand, in the Martial Spirit Palace team, the cold and beautiful Hulaina looked at Shui Bing and Shui Yu in front of Wang Kai with a hostile gaze. Although Shui Bing looked a little cold, her hand was actually very warm. The touch was like a beautiful jade, soft and smooth, giving Wang Kai a very pleasant and comfortable feeling. In the past, Shui Bing had never been held by a strange man. After all, Skywater Academy was an academy that only recruited female students. Therefore, under the embrace of Wang Kai's big hand, Shui Bing's pretty face blushed slightly. However, she didn't feel any discomfort. Instead, she felt an extremely warm, comfortable, and even safe feeling. Miss Shui Yu, nice to meet you too. Although the feeling of shaking hands with Shui Bing was very wonderful, Wang Kai didn't want to be in contact with her for too long in front of everyone's eyes. After a few seconds, Wang Kai revealed a bright smile and let go of her hand. Then, he enthusiastically greeted Shui Yu. Hello, Your Highness Wang Kai. Seeing Wang Kai reaching out his hand to her, Shui Yu revealed a trace of excitement. Which girl didn't yearn for love? As the holy son of Martial Spirit Palace, Wang Kai was the most outstanding representative of young soul masters. He was also Shui Yu's idol. Seeing her idol appear in front of her and take the initiative to greet her, Shui Yu was also very excited. Then, she enthusiastically greeted Wang Kai. After meeting the two girls, Wang Kai also turned around and returned to his seat. At this time, Hulaina also glanced at Wang Kai with hidden bitterness. For Hulaina, her degree of beauty was only slightly inferior to Chihiro Snow and the other three girls. She was also a beauty that could sink fish and sink wild geese. Coupled with the charm of her heavenly fox martial soul, Wang Kai had already included her in the list of preparatory members of his big family. However, Hulaina's teacher was the disciple of the martial spirit palace's pope, Chihiro Snow's mother, Bibidon. It wasn't convenient for Wang Kai to propose marriage to Bibidon now. Therefore, although Wang Kai and Hulaina's relationship had rapidly heated up in half a year, and Wang Kai had also snatched away Hulaina's first kiss, the two of them didn't take the next step and made substantial progress. However, seeing Wang Kai so intimately meeting other girls, Hulaina still felt a little uncomfortable. Chapter 216. After returning to the martial spirit hall, Wang Kai was a little surprised by the overall strength of the Skywater Academy. Compared to the original timeline, Shui Bing-er's strength had increased by a full 8 ranks, reaching the realm of a Soul King. It seemed that Shui Bing-er was also favored by the will of the world, which was why her soul force was able to increase so quickly. At the same time, her sister Shui Yu-er's strength had also increased by quite a bit. Of course, her increase in strength wasn't as great as Shui Bing-er's, but her soul force was already at the realm of a soul ancestor. This kind of strength could only be considered average among the 32 teams that had been selected. However, Wang Kai knew that the Skywater Academy had a huge trump card. The twin sisters, Shui Bing-er and Shui Yu-er, were able to release the legendary martial soul fusion skill. According to convention, a fusion skill unleashed by 2 rank 40 soul masters wouldn't be inferior to a soul skill unleashed by a rank 60 soul master. With Shui Bing-er and Shui Yu-er's strength, their fusion skill would be able to unleash a power comparable to a soul sage without his martial soul true body. Relying on this skill, they would definitely be able to achieve something in the advancement round. Just as Wang Kai returned to the martial spirit hall and began to sigh with emotion about the strength of this year's Soul Master Tournament, Shui Bing-er led the members of the Skywater Academy to a place near the martial spirit hall to wait for the opening ceremony to begin. The waiting process was definitely quite boring, and girls naturally liked to gossip. At this time, the captain of the Skywater Academy team, Shui Bing-er, gently pinched her sister, Shui Yu-er's small face and jokingly asked, "Sister Yu, seeing how excited you were when you shook hands with His Highness Wang Kai, do you think you've already fallen in love with Wang Kai?" "Sister Bing-er, you're saying that I've fallen in love with His Highness Wang Kai? How is that possible? You must know that I've never met His Highness Wang Kai before. This is the first time I've seen His Highness Wang Kai. How can I fall in love with him so quickly?" Hearing Shui Bing-er's question, Shui Yu-er quickly explained. However, although Shui Yu-er denied it verbally, the more she thought about it, the more she felt that she might have really fallen in love with the handsome, generous, calm, and sunny Wang Kai. Although it was only their first meeting, Wang Kai's kind smile and warm hands seemed to have been imprinted in her heart. Could it be that she really had feelings for Wang Kai? No, I can't let my sister see this. Otherwise, she will definitely laugh at me. Looking at Shui Yu-er's faintly changing expression, Shui Bing-er, who was very familiar with Shui Yu-er, suddenly understood something. It seemed that not only her, but even her sister Shui Yu-er also liked Wang Kai. Hearing Shui Yu-er's explanation, the other members of the Tianshui battle team all looked over with eyes full of gossip. From Wang Kai's expression just now, Shui Bing-er could tell that Wang Kai admired and liked them. However, Wang Kai was the holy son of the martial spirit hall, while she and her sister were only soul kings and soul ancestors. Even if he had feelings for them, would they have the chance to become the wives of such a handsome and powerful man like His Highness Wang Kai? Regarding this point, Shui Bing-er wasn't sure. After all, Wang Kai had only expressed admiration for them, but not any further interest. However, if Wang Kai was really willing to give them a status, she would definitely be willing to take her sister Shui Yu to serve His Highness Wang Kai. At this moment Shui Yu in order to divert the attention of the other members, suddenly said, "Sister Bing by asking me this, could it be that you've also fallen in love with His Highness Wang Kai? Are you afraid that I'll steal him from you?" Hearing Shui Yu's words, the other members of the Tianshui battle team all looked over at Shui Bing. Seeing the curious gazes of the surrounding sisters, Shui Bing could only glare fiercely at Shui Yu. She regretted bringing up such a topic, but she explained, "You are you joking? His Highness Wang Kai is the holy son of the martial spirit hall, how could we possibly be related to him? Sister Bing you just said that you wanted to relate to His Highness Wang Kai. Could it be that Sister Bing has really fallen in love with His Highness Wang Kai?" Hearing Shui Bing's words, a tall and handsome girl from the Tianshui battle team smiled and asked. She was the second strongest person in the Tianshui battle team, and also the vice-captain, Shuiwu. "Aya, Sister Shuiwu, don't be so picky. I didn't mean it that way." Hearing Shuiwu's words, Shui Bing's tone became more anxious. Although the Tianshui Academy didn't forbid female students from dating, girls were always shy. Being gossiped about who she liked by a group of sisters, Shui Bing couldn't help but want to find a hole to hide in. Alright, Bing look at how anxious you are. I was just joking. Do you have to be so anxious? Looking at Shui Bing's appearance, how could the exquisite Shui Wu not guess what Shui Bing meant? However, in her heart, regardless of status or appearance, Wang Kai was definitely worthy of their big sister, Shui Bing. Therefore, in order to prevent her teasing from making Shui Bing sick of Wang Kai, she didn't continue to pester Shui Bing. Just as the girls from the Tianshui battle team were teasing and playing with each other, there was a sudden commotion from the entrance of the preparation hall. Following that, a team of students wearing strange attire walked out from the entrance. Compared to the other teams, which had dazzling colors such as gold, silver, red, and white, embroidered with all kinds of complicated decorations, beautiful patterns, and mighty academy logos, the team members of this team were wearing could really be called the word weirdo. It made people blush with shame. The color of this team's uniform was actually a kind of *T green between yellow and green. Just looking at it gave people a feeling of nausea. Not only that, there was a Shrek monster embroidered on each of their chests, which took up almost half of the area in front of them. The color of this group was a vibrant emerald green. On their faces, there was a strange mask that covered their faces. However, this was not the most bizarre part. On the back of this team's robes, there were actually more than 10 large words embroidered on them: endless charm, strange fragrance, flower dew, wash to be healthier. This also caused the various teams in the preparation hall to cast strange gazes at them. Chapter 217. There was no doubt that the team members in front of Wang Kai were from Shrek Academy. Furthermore, his main enemy in the near future, the Child of Destiny, Tang San, was also a member of this team. Although Shrek Academy's team members were all wearing masks, this didn't hinder the effects of the Eye of Detection. As a result, Wang Kai also used his Eye of Detection to observe them as he sized them up. While Wang Kai was observing Shrek's 7 monsters, the majority of the teams in the preparation hall also turned their curious gazes towards Shrek's team. Although the teams from the Heaven Do Imperial City had seen Shrek's 7 monsters' weird uniforms before, there were more teams from other regions, and even the Star Luo Empire. Now that Shrek's team had appeared, their weird uniforms naturally attracted everyone's attention. Shrek Academy's students didn't feel very good when they saw the strange looks that were cast towards them. As a result, they hurriedly left through the main entrance and found a corner to sit down. Although the quality of the Soul Masters who had entered the qualifier round was much better than the commoners outside, and most of them didn't talk much about Shrek's 7 monsters' weird uniforms, there were still many Soul Masters from aristocratic families who looked at them with disdain. In such a sacred and dignified tournament, These people were actually doing something as tacky as advertising. They were really embarrassing Soul Masters. At this moment, Wang Kai also saw the soul of Shrek Academy's teachers. They were the Golden Iron Triangle, Flender, Lu Erlong and Yu Xiaojiang. The leader of the three was a black-haired middle-aged man who wore a black robe and wore a pair of black-framed glasses. His eyes were bright and full of expression. He had a head of messy hair that resembled the style of a punk, and there was a silver belt around his waist. He seemed to be very spirited. This was Flender, the dean of Shrek Academy. His martial soul was a four-eyed owl, and he was a soul sage. Even though he was already over 50 years old, Flender was still in the prime of his life due to the fact that a soul sage could live for 120 years. However, he didn't look too old. Behind Flender was a gray-haired, haggard middle-aged man in a brown suit, and a tall, young woman in a blue robe with a rosy face. Without a doubt, this old man was the one known as the theoretical genius of the world of soul cultivators, Yu Xiaojiang. Even though he was about the same age as Flender, he was far weaker than Flender, who was a soul sage. In addition to his tragic past, his face was filled with the scars of time. As for the young woman, she was naturally Lu Erlong, Yu Xiaojiang's cousin and lover, the Horn of Massacre of the Golden Iron Triangle, and one of the teachers of Shrek Academy. Even though Lu Erlong was already 50 years old, she paid more attention to maintaining her appearance as a woman. As a result, her appearance wasn't much different from that of a 30-year-old woman, and she still had some charm. Of course, even though Lu Erlong still had some beauty, her appearance was only at the level of a beauty in Wang Kai's heart. In addition to her actual age, Wang Kai wasn't interested in her at all. One had to know that even if he randomly grabbed a girl from the Skywater Academy, she would definitely be much prettier than Lu Erlong. When he thought about Lu Erlong's age, it was even more boring. At this moment, Wang Kai had already used his detection eye to check the specific strength of Shrek's 7 monsters and the other members of Shrek's team. As the successor chosen by the gods and the current generation's child of destiny, Tang San's increase in strength was naturally the highest out of everyone present. His cultivation had reached rank 54, which was a huge increase compared to the original timeline. As a team that hadn't been famous in the past, Shrek Academy's results had earned them the title of a dark horse. At the same time, they had also attracted the attention of the Martial Soul Hall. However, Tang San hadn't fought even once in the qualifiers, so the Martial Soul Hall hadn't been able to obtain any specific data on Tang San's strength and soul skills. This made Wang Kai feel a little disappointed. As for the other 6 members of Shrek's 7 monsters, Dai Mubai's strength had increased from rank 44 to rank 53, and Zhu Zhuqing's strength had increased from rank 42 to rank 51. This meant that 3 Soul Kings had appeared in Shrek's 7 monsters, and their strength had increased tremendously. Of course, Shrek Academy had only revealed the strength of 1 Soul King, Zhu Zhuqing, in the previous qualifiers, and had concealed their true strength greatly. Of the remaining 4, Oscar, Ning Rongrong, and Ma Hongjun had all reached rank 49, while Xiao Wu had reached rank 45. Even Shrek Academy's 3 substitutes, Huang Yuan, Jiang Zhu, and Jing Ling, were all soul ancestors. The arrival of Shrek Academy didn't attract the attention of everyone for a long time, because very soon, even more academies entered the preparation hall. The tall and big Leopardia Academy's team that resembled a mountain of flesh, the Star Luo Iron Blood Academy's team that was dressed in battle armor and exuded a murderous aura, and the God Wind Academy's team that was dressed in green and moving elegantly. Not long after, all the academies had entered the preparation hall. After a while, it was 8 in the morning, and the opening ceremony of the Continental Advanced Soul Master Academy Tournament officially began. The first event of the opening ceremony was for each academy's team to make an appearance. This procedure was very similar to the entrance of the Blue Stars athletes. As the Martial Soul Hall's own team, Wang Kai and his team members were arranged to be the first to enter. At this time, the audience in the Great Soul Dueling Arena was already in place, and a grand and passionate symphony resounded in the Great Soul Dueling Arena. At this time, the host's voice resounded throughout the entire Great Soul Dueling Arena from the sound-amplifying Soul Tool. Distinguished guests, we are very honored to be able to gather here to participate in this grand occasion of the world of Soul Masters. First, let us invite the 32 teams that emerged from the qualifiers to make an appearance. After a pause, the host's voice rang out again. The first team to make an appearance is the legendary team that won the championship twice in the last 3 editions of the Soul Master Tournament. All the members of this team are from the host of this tournament, the Martial Soul Hall. Let us invite the Martial Soul Battle Team 1 to make an appearance. Following the host's words, the staff members who were already waiting in the preparation hall led Wang Kai and the other members of the Martial Soul Battle Team 1 to the entrance of the Great Soul Dueling Arena. Shortly after, Wang Kai walked in front, leading the other 10 team members out with their heads held high and chests puffed out. Chapter 218. Under the watchful eyes of the audience, Wang Kai brought the members of the Martial Spirit Hall to the center of the Great Soul Arena. Right in front of them were the high-ranking members of the Martial Soul Hall, the high-ranking Soul Masters who were invited, and the nobles of the 2 empires. On the other 3 sides were the ordinary spectators who had come to watch the fight. Of course, the ordinary spectators weren't ordinary at all. Most of the people who were able to enter the Soul Dueling Arena were either Soul Exalts or Nobles. After all, a single ticket to the opening ceremony cost 1,000 gold soul coins. That wasn't a price any commoner could afford. Now, the members of the Martial Spirit Hall are standing in front of you. Leading them is the captain of the Martial Spirit Hall, Wang Kai. He's also the Holy Son of the Martial Spirit Hall. Wang Kai was already a rank 57 high-ranking Soul King a year ago. I wonder how strong he's become now. After Wang Kai and the others stood still, the host introduced them loudly. After hearing the host's words, Wang Kai waved his hand to greet the audience. At this time, the other teams in the waiting hall also heard about Wang Kai's strength. They all had different expressions on their faces. Some were shocked, some were disappointed, but most of the team members were full of fighting spirit. They could lose against a strong opponent, but they couldn't be afraid. Vice Captain of the Martial Spirit Hall, Evil Moon. After Wang Kai waved his hand to the audience, the host announced the next team member. After hearing the host's words, Evil Moon smiled and waved his hand to the audience. Member of the Martial Spirit Hall, Hu Laina. Member of the Martial Spirit Hall, Jiang Jing. Member of the Martial Spirit Hall, Yu Hao. Shortly after, the host introduced the names of the other team members to the audience one by one. When Hu Laina introduced herself, the audience's enthusiasm was instantly ignited. After all, Soul Masters were also humans, and they also liked beautiful women. Furthermore, Hu Laina's appearance was definitely one of the best amongst the beauties. Coupled with the faintly discernible charm that came with her martial soul, she was able to attract the good feelings of the males. After Martial Spirit Palace, the Imperial Star Luo Battle Team, who had won the championship once in the past 3 tournaments, took to the field. After the Imperial Star Luo Battle Team, the Heaven Do Battle Team was the 3rd team to enter the promotion round. Immediately after, the God Wind Academy, Star Luo Iron and Blood Academy, Botany Academy one by one, the battle teams made their appearance one after another. When the beautiful Heavenly Water Academy appeared on the stage, the atmosphere in the entire arena once again reached its peak. Dozens of minutes passed, and more than 20 teams had already appeared in front of the audience. Following which, it was Shrek Academy's turn. Next up is Shrek Academy from the Heaven Do Empire. I'm sure many of you have never heard of this academy. That's right, this is their first time entering the promotion round of the Soul Master Tournament, and this team also has a Soul King Soul Master. Now, let us welcome this dark horse team, Shrek Academy, onto the stage. Following the host's words, Shrek Academy's team members could only leave the preparation hall with awkward hearts. Wearing their team uniforms with the Flower Dew advertisement, they walked into the Great Soul Arena. Before entering the arena, they had already been asked by the staff to remove their mask. Thus, after entering the arena, they felt more and more uncomfortable, and their expressions were a little unnatural. Seeing Shrek Academy's strange green outfit, many Soul Masters couldn't help but reveal expressions of laughter. There were also some sharp-eyed Soul Masters who saw the advertisement behind them and softly read it out loud, welcoming waves of laughter. Now, let us welcome Shrek's captain, Dai Mubai. Following the host's words, the golden-haired Dai Mubai strode forward with large strides and greeted the audience with a bright smile. At this moment, a male and a female Soul Master from the Imperial Star Luo Empire revealed astonished expressions on their faces. This male Soul Master's appearance was somewhat similar to Dai Mubai's, but his figure was a little taller than Dai Mubai's. His long golden hair draped over his back, and this male, Li Jingheng, revealed a lazy expression. His eyes were translucent with purple light, and although the smile on his face was very casual, it revealed a hint of a superior's smile. The young lady beside him had a head of black hair and a tall figure. She was only slightly shorter than the male Soul Master. She had an extremely voluptuous figure and white jade-like skin. She was rather beautiful, and there was a trace of a superior's graceful smile on her face. Her arm was wrapped around the golden-haired male Soul Master's arm. Her appearance was very similar to that of Zhu Zhuqing and Wang Kai's Zhu Yiling, but she lacked Zhu Zhuqing's coldness. She looked very gentle and beautiful. These two Soul Masters were none other than Dai Mubai's elder brother, Davis, and Zhu Zhuqing's elder sister, Zhu Zhuyun. They were also the strongest contenders for the next successor of the Star Luo Empire. However, when they saw Dai Mubai, their faces were no longer calm. Instead, they revealed a trace of astonishment and seriousness. "Teacher, have you collected any information on this team from Shrek Academy?" With a slight frown, Davis asked a white-haired old man next to him. "Of course, Your Highness. This is the information on Shrek Academy's team. Please take a look." After hearing Davis's instructions, the elder smiled and passed the information on Shrek Academy's team to Davis. Davis and Zhu Zhuyun also looked at the information in their hands. "Impossible. How can Zhu Zhuqing become a Soul King?" Looking at the information in her hands, Zhu Zhuyun's tranquil face suddenly revealed an incredulous expression. Her eyes flashed with astonishment, and her mouth said in astonishment, "I also think it's impossible. Zhu Zhuqing's talent isn't better than yours. Furthermore, ever since she and Dai Mubai voluntarily left the Star Luo Empire, they didn't receive any rich cultivation resources. But now, their cultivation is almost catching up to ours. You have to know that they're younger than us." As he spoke, a trace of coldness appeared in Davis's eyes. "Yes, it seems like we've been deceived by this adulterous pair. We have to take action after this." As she spoke, a trace of killing intent appeared in Zhu Zhuyun's eyes. Chapter 219. The Vice-Captain of Shrek Academy's team, Tang San. While Davis and Zhu Zhuyun were shocked by Dai Mubai's appearance and Zhu Zhuqing's strength, the host didn't stop speaking. Instead, he continued to announce the name of Shrek Academy's next member. Tang San. Hearing this name, Wang Kai's spirit was immediately lifted. Then, he stared at the blue-haired man who took a step forward in the middle of the field. Tang San was about 1.8 meters tall, with a tall and sturdy figure and broad shoulders. Although Tang San was only a control-type Soul Master, his figure was very sturdy. Wang Kai naturally knew the reason for this. Tang San was a special twin martial Soul Master, and his second martial soul was the continent's strongest tool martial soul, the Clear Sky Hammer. Tang San's powerful physique was inextricably linked to his Clear Sky Hammer martial soul. Looking up at Tang San's body, Tang San's skin was quite fair. It was only slightly worse than Wang Kai's, who had undergone several meridians cleansing. Tang San's palms had a beautiful jade-like luster, appearing like a perfect work of art. Needless to say, this was the effect of Tang San's mysterious jade hands. Immediately, Wang Kai looked at Tang San's face. Tang San's head had a head of blue hair. Although this hair was of a certain length, it didn't appear messy. Tang San's face was also quite upright. His eyes were deep and had a faint purple aura, giving his eyes a sense of mystery. Wang Kai also understood that this purple aura was the effect of another technique that Tang San brought from another world, the purple demon eyes. Tang San's appearance immediately attracted the attention of the girls present. Although Tang San's appearance was clearly inferior to Wang Kai's, Wang Kai was the holy son of the martial soul hall. The girls present knew that they had no chance of marrying Wang Kai. However, Tang San was different from Wang Kai. From his attire, Tang San was clearly a commoner soul master. However, his appearance was quite handsome, and could attract the hearts of the girls. At the same time, being able to enter the Continental Advanced Soul Master Academy Tournament's advancement round also proved Tang San's talent. To these girls from aristocratic or soul master families, a commoner soul master like Tang San was their best target. Shrek Academy's team member Zhu. Shrek's team member Ning Rongrong. Shrek Academy's team member Oscar. When the host called Ning Rongrong's name, Ning Fengji, who was sitting in the VIP seats, suddenly showed a satisfied expression. Soon, all the members of Shrek Academy's team had finished their introductions, and then they left under the guidance of the host. Immediately, the next team continued to walk to the center of the Great Soul Arena. About half an hour later, all the team introductions were finally over, and the next stage of the opening ceremony officially began. Now, let's invite the representative of the organizer of the Soul Master Tournament, His Majesty Holy Dragon Doloa of the Martial Soul Hall, to speak. Following the host's words, a black-haired middle-aged man in a gorgeous white robe with a square face in the VIP seats stood up, and then he strode to the podium. When he stood still, several staff members at the side immediately came forward and gave him a loudspeaker soul tool. Looking at this middle-aged man, the chatting crowd in the arena almost stopped at once, and the noisy Great Soul Arena also quieted down. Although there was no one to command, everyone still instinctively maintained reverence for a titled Doloa, just like the people on Blue Planet meeting a high-ranking official. I, Elder Holy Dragon of the Martial Soul Hall, on behalf of the Martial Soul Hall and the organizer of this tournament, announce the start of this year's Pan-Continent Advanced Soul Master Academy Tournament. Following the Holy Dragon Doloa's words, thunderous applause suddenly rang out in the Great Soul Arena. The Holy Dragon Doloa paused, then raised his right hand and gently waved to the audience, indicating everyone to be quiet, and then he continued to speak. The Pan-Continent Advanced Soul Master Academy Tournament is a competition for the best young soul masters on our Dolua continent. Congratulations to the team members who were able to pass the preliminaries and enter our Soul Master Academy Tournament. You are all the best young soul masters on the Dolua continent, and also the pride and future of our Dolua continent. Here, I hope that every soul master participating in this tournament will be able to unleash their full potential and achieve good result. As someone who has experienced this before, I wish to give you my most sincere blessings. Following the Holy Dragon Doloa's words, thunderous applause and cheers rose and fell again. After waiting for the applause to fall silent again, the Holy Dragon Doloa continued in a deep voice. Of course, I also want to reiterate some of the requirements of this tournament. First of all, this tournament is only about victory and defeat, not about life and death. Our goal in organizing this tournament is to encourage the new generation of soul masters to work hard in their cultivation, not to determine who is better than the other. Children, you are all the future hope of the Dolua continent, so I hope that you can all grow up safely. Therefore, I also hope that you will not deliberately hurt your opponents in the tournament. Secondly, this Soul Master tournament is meant to test a Soul Master's abilities, and not their wealth. Because of this, all soul tools, weapons, and defensive equipment were not allowed to be used. They were also not allowed to use food that didn't belong to a food-type Soul Master, nor were they allowed to use soul skills that didn't belong to a Soul Master. If anyone dares to secretly break the rules, we will immediately strip them of their right to compete and expel them from the competition. Thirdly, and this is also my personal opinion, in this tournament you are all opponents, but in your future life and cultivation, you may become friends. Therefore, don't treat those who defeat you as enemies. Treat your opponents with sincerity, kindness, and tolerance. It's always better to have one more friend than one more enemy. Finally, on behalf of the Martial Soul Hall, I would like to extend an invitation to all the Soul Masters who have entered the qualifiers. I believe that all of you will graduate after the tournament. After you graduate, whether you are a Soul Master from the Heaven Do Empire or the Star Luo Empire, the doors of the Martial Soul Hall will be open to all of you. As long as you are willing to join the Martial Soul Hall, you will enjoy the benefits of being a member of the Martial Soul Hall one rank higher than you, until you become a Soul Sage and become a white-robed bishop. If you can pass the qualifiers and become one of the 8 teams in the finals, the Martial Soul Hall will make an exception and allow you to directly join the Martial Soul Hall. Chapter 220. The Martial Soul Temple. Scorching anticipation immediately appeared in the eyes of the vast majority of participants upon hearing the Holy Dragon Dolua's words. What kind of place was the Martial Soul Temple? The Martial Soul Temple was second only to the Supreme Pontiff, Dolua, and Elder Hall. It was a holy land that Soul Masters could only dream of entering in the Martial Soul Temple and the Martial Soul Temple in the 2 empires' capitals. In the Martial Soul Temple, the Supreme Pontiff's palace was the place where the Supreme Pontiff lived. The Dolo Hall was the symbol of the Martial Soul Temple, and the Elder Hall was the organization for titled Doloa and above. As such, the Martial Soul Temple was the highest level of organization in the Martial Soul Temple for ordinary Soul Masters. Being able to enter the Martial Soul Temple was a shortcut for any Soul Master to become stronger. Once a Soul Master entered the Martial Soul Temple, they would receive the best training from the Martial Soul Temple. Not only would they be able to enjoy an ocean of cultivation resources and the guidance of powerful Soul Masters, but they would also be able to enjoy the best treatment and the honor of being a member of the Martial Soul Temple. Such conditions were extremely attractive to ordinary Soul Masters who were born in commoner families. Many of the Soul Masters present looked at the Martial Soul Temple with yearning in their eyes. However, Emperor Shui Yi and Emperor Dai Aotian's expressions darkened when they heard the Holy Dragon Dolua's words. A powerful Soul Master was the foundation of an organization. The young Soul Masters present were all outstanding individuals of the younger generation, and all of them had the potential to become Soul Sages. Any one of them could become the backbone of an organization in the future. Obviously, the Martial Spirit Palace's method of snatching talents was no different from cutting the flesh of the 2 empires. It was no wonder that the 2 great emperors were so displeased. Now, let us invite one of the organizers of this tournament, Emperor Shui Yi of the Heaven Do Empire, to speak. The Holy Dragon Dolua announced the commencement of the competition before returning to his seat. Immediately thereafter, the opening ceremony of the competition continued as the MC spoke. Following the host's words, a white-haired old man sitting in the first row of the VIP area slowly stood up. This old man wore a golden-red robe embroidered with several dragons bearing their fangs and brandishing their claws. He looked mighty and domineering, and on his head was a dazzling golden diamond crown. The crown was inlaid with a fist-sized golden diamond, and beside it were countless colorful gems. It looked extremely gorgeous and beautiful. This elder's expression was very calm, but he exuded an aura of superiority. His eyes were as calm as a well, as if he had seen through everything in the world. Although his face looked a little old, his aura was very strong. Just by standing there, he gave people the feeling that everything around him was centered around him. In the current timeline, Chihiro Snow didn't infiltrate the Heaven Do Empire because of her own reasons. Naturally, she couldn't poison Emperor Shuiyi, who was thousands of miles away. As a result, Emperor Shuiyi didn't seem tired at all. Instead, he seemed to be in high spirit. As soon as the Snowy Night Emperor stood up, the audience parted a path for him. Behind him was a gray-robed elder who was supposed to be his bodyguard. The Snowy Night Emperor walked up to the podium under the watchful eyes of the soul cultivators and nobles of the Heaven Do Empire. Enthusiastic applause rang out once more. However, the applause this time was much more sparse than the first. The soul masters and nobles of the Star Luo Empire only clapped symbolically for the emperor of another empire. They weren't as enthusiastic as when the Holy Dragon Dolua took the stage. At this moment, Wang Kai turned to look at Emperor Shuiyi. Although Emperor Shuiyi wasn't very strong, and was only a soul king with the support of the imperial family, Wang Kai had to admit that Emperor Shuiyi was a very courageous and daring ruler. In the original timeline, when Emperor Shuiyi saw Tang San's talent and potential, he immediately invested heavily in Tang San. Not only did he make Tang San the Grand Tutor of the Crown Prince, he even gave him the Heaven Do Empire's national treasure, the vast sea cosmic shroud. Of course, the Snowy Night Emperor's investment also paid off in the end. Tang San, whom he invested in, eventually became a god, and Tang San returned the favor by protecting the Heaven Do Empire's legacy for 10,000 years. Emperor Shuiyi was definitely one of the obstacles in his future plans to conquer the Dolua continent. However, Wang Kai also believed that as long as he was strong enough, under the suppression of his absolute strength, no schemes or tricks would be able to stop him. Emperor Shuiyi cleared his throat in front of the sound-amplifying soul tool. After that, he said in a deep voice, "I'm very happy to see all of you here, the geniuses of this generation of soul masters. Here, I sincerely wish that all the soul masters from the Heaven Do Empire, the Star Do Empire, and the Martial Soul Hall will be able to unleash their full strength in the tournament. Show off your best and achieve the results you want. And here, as the Emperor of the Heaven Do Empire, I would like to congratulate all the Soul Master teams that have entered the Heaven Do Empire. Congratulations to you. All of you are the pride of the Heaven Do Empire. Every time you win glory for yourself, your academy, and the Heaven Do Empire. For the glory of the Empire, go and fight. Do your best to display your brilliance." After hearing Emperor Shuiyi's words, many of the Heaven Do Empire's soul masters were moved and excited. After that, they started to clap enthusiastically. After the applause stopped, Emperor Shuiyi continued, "At the same time, I would like to tell all the genius soul masters from the Heaven Do Empire who have entered the qualifiers that the Empire needs outstanding talents like all of you. The Empire also values soul masters who are willing to serve the Empire, especially talented soul masters like all of you." Earlier, His Majesty Xing Long from the Martial Soul Hall said that if all of you are willing to join the Martial Soul Hall, the Martial Soul Hall will provide extremely generous conditions for soul masters who have entered the qualifiers and finals. I would also like to tell all of you that if you are willing to stay in the Heaven Do Empire after graduation, we will do our best to nurture all of you. If the Martial Soul Hall is willing to provide one portion of resources to nurture all of you, the Heaven Do Empire is willing to provide 2 portions. The Heaven Do Empire will not mistreat any soul master who is willing to join the Heaven Do Empire. Chapter 221. Aside from that, if you are willing to serve the Heaven Do Empire after you graduate, the Empire will bestow upon you the title of Baron. As the captain and vice-captain of each team, your strength will play an important role in the competition. Therefore, if you are willing to join the Empire will bestow upon you the title of Viscount. The eyes of the Heaven Do Empire's Soul Masters lit up at the words of the Snowy Night Emperor. Their hearts were filled with eagerness. Whether it was the Heaven Do Empire or the Star Luo Empire, the ranks of nobility were divided into Duke, Marquis, Count, Viscount, and Baron. Generally speaking, as long as a soul ancestor was willing to serve the Empire, they would be able to obtain the title of Baron. A soul king would be able to obtain the title of Viscount. However, these nobles were only nobles of the imperial court. They would only be able to obtain an honorary title with no land or inheritance. They would only be able to receive a monthly allowance from the Empire. However, what the Snowy Night Emperor promised was not an honorary title of nobility, but a hereditary title of nobility with their own territory that could be inherited. A viscount's territory was usually a small city. Furthermore, they would have their own territory and guards. They would also be able to receive a large sum of money from the Heaven Do Empire. Whether it was cultivation or living, they would have no worries. In comparison, the Martial Soul Hall's promise was very generous, but it was still lacking. The Martial Soul Hall's promise was more for the Soul Masters themselves. The Heaven Do Empire's reward was the foundation of a Soul Master's family. After hearing the Snowy Night Emperor's words, many of the Soul Masters who originally wanted to join the Martial Soul Hall hesitated. Even the Holy Dragon Doloa had a sinister look on his face. Other than that, I also promise that if any team can enter the finals through the qualifier round, the Empire will help them obtain their 4th and 5th soul rings in addition to the rewards I promised before. There are many strong individuals in the Empire. Therefore, as long as you are willing to join the Empire will guarantee you the best soul ring configuration for your 4th and 5th soul rings. Not only that, the Empire will also prepare a generous reward of gold soul coins for you. After hearing the Snowy Night Emperor's words, the eyes of the Heaven Do Empire's students were filled with yearning. To a soul master, rank 50 wasn't as important as rank 30. However, rank 50 was the first level a normal soul master could obtain, a 10,000-year soul ring. The strength of the first 10,000-year soul ring was extremely important to every soul master's future. At the same time, a soul master's cultivation speed would greatly decrease from rank 50 onwards. If they could obtain a 10,000-year soul ring as a guarantee, they would undoubtedly be able to maintain their strength from rank 50 to rank 60. It would be extremely beneficial to their future development, so it was no wonder that these soul masters were so tempted. And if there are teams that enter the top 3, then in addition to the previous rewards, I promise that you will receive an additional nobility title. In other words, if such a team is willing to join our Heaven Do Empire, then their captain and vice-captain will directly be conferred the title of Count, while every single member will be conferred the title of Viscount. Apart from that, our Empire will provide you with all the soul beasts you need before you become a soul sage, regardless of whether you're a member or the leader. Not only that, but you can also choose the type of soul beast you want. The Empire can guarantee any soul beast with a cultivation of 30,000 years and below. The Snowy Night Emperor smiled in satisfaction as he looked down at the Heaven Do Empire's soul masters. These soul masters were the foundation of the Heaven Do Empire's future. They couldn't just hand it over to anyone else. What frightening boldness! Even though the Snowy Night Emperor isn't very strong, he's truly a man of great talent and foresight. After hearing the Snowy Night Emperor's words, Wang Kai couldn't help but admire the Snowy Night Emperor's boldness. Faced with such conditions, the Martial Soul Temple's offer to join the Martial Soul Temple was like a firefly to the moon. It wasn't very attractive at all. A count's territory was at least a medium-sized city with a population of 100,000. Only titled Dolo or Soul Masters who had contributed greatly to the Heaven Do Empire had the right to enjoy such a fiefdom. Now, the Snowy Night Emperor was giving such a generous reward to the top 3 teams in the finals. It was a sign of how much he valued them. Of course, the Snowy Night Emperor's actions weren't without reason. For those teams that could enter the top 3 in the finals, their captains and members might not be able to become titled Doluo, but they definitely wouldn't have a problem becoming Seoul Doluo. Using the title of a count to rope in a Seoul Doluo might seem like a loss, but if they could rope in a future titled Doluo, it wouldn't be a loss for the Heaven Do Empire. Instead, it would be a huge gain. As for preparing soul rings for soul masters before they became soul sages, it was also a very attractive option. For most commoners who came from academies, the most the academies could do was to help them obtain their 5th soul ring. As for higher-ranked soul rings, they had to rely on their own efforts. Obtaining soul rings wasn't a simple thing. It was fraught with danger. Every year, many soul masters died in the various large soul beast forests because they wanted to obtain soul rings. News of entire soul master teams being wiped out was also endless. A 30,000-year soul beast's soul ring was definitely a high-quality soul ring that an ordinary soul master could obtain when he or she became a soul sage. However, a 30,000-year soul beast's fighting strength was comparable to that of a high-tier soul sage. For a soul master who was about to become a soul sage, it was almost impossible to kill a 30,000-year soul beast alone. Even if a soul hunter team was formed and led by a soul sage, it wasn't guaranteed that they could kill a 30,000-year soul beast. There was even a chance that they would be killed instead. Right now, the Heaven Do Empire had actually proposed a condition that could prevent soul masters from facing such life-threatening dangers and ensure that they could successfully become soul sages. This was a very generous choice. To many soul masters, this promise was even more tempting than the title of a count. The hearts of all the soul masters present couldn't help but beat faster. Even Tang San, who was the child of the plain, couldn't remain calm. At this moment, the smile in the Snowy Night Emperor's eyes became even more radiant. He immediately continued, "Lastly, if any of your teams are lucky enough to win the final round, your title will be promoted even though your territory won't be upgraded. Furthermore, your academies can add the words Imperial Family to their titles, and you'll receive financial support from the Empire." Chapter 222. After the Snowy Night Emperor finished speaking, he left the stage under the fervent gazes of the Heaven Do Empire's soul masters. He returned to his seat and the host invited the Star Luo Empire's Emperor, Dai Outyen, to speak. Dai Outyen was only a few years younger than the Snowy Night Emperor, but his soul power was at the pinnacle of the Doluo level. Dai Outyen's life force and energy were at their peak. Therefore, no one could tell that he was close to 60 years old from his face. His footsteps were quick and steady. Unlike the Snowy Night Emperor and the Holy Dragon Doluo, Dai Outyen encouraged the Star Luo Empire's soul masters and promised them rewards. However, the rewards he promised were far less generous than the Martial Spirit Hall and the Heaven Do Empires. However, at the end of his speech, Dai Outyen said a few very domineering words. "Students, I know that some of you want to join the Martial Spirit Hall. That's not a problem. Since you want to join the Martial Spirit Hall, I won't stop you. However, since you've chosen to join the Martial Spirit Hall, you'll be seen as a traitor in the Star Luo Empire. You and your family will be banished from the Star Luo Empire and will never be allowed to enter again." It was clear that the Star Luo Empire's imperial family was much stronger than the Heaven Do Empire's imperial family. They had more control over the Star Luo Empire, so they could take more effective measures against betrayal. Although Dai Outyen's daughter, Dai Qingli, was engaged to Wang Kai, it was only a marriage between two powers. Dai Outyen wouldn't allow the Martial Spirit Hall to steal from the Star Luo Empire. After hearing Dai Outyen's warning, many of the soul cultivators from the Star Luo Empire began to retract their thoughts. After all, the Star Luo Empire was a country that prided itself on its clans. If their clans were to become traitors and be expelled from the Star Luo Empire because of their own actions, the price to pay would be too great. However, there were many commoner soul masters in the Star Luo Empire's team. To them, the Martial Spirit Hall's invitation was still very attractive. They didn't have any powerful families behind them. If they could live a better life outside the Star Luo Empire, they were willing to accept such a price. This was also one of the reasons why the Martial Spirit Hall's soul masters rarely came from powerful families. After Dai Aotian's speech, Ning Fengji represented the sect and gave his blessings to the participating soul masters. Ning Fengji slowly walked to the center of the stage amidst the audience's applause. "I'm very happy to be invited as a guest for the opening ceremony. This tournament. As the sect master, I've seen too many soul masters growth Luo Empire. Every soul master's cultivation academy has to undergo many hardships and trials and tribulations. However, what I want to say is that the sharpness of a treasured sword is sharpened, and the fragrance of plum blossoms comes from the bitter cold. Those who are able to participate in the Soul Master Tournament are undoubtedly the elites of the younger generation. Just as the Holy Dragon Doluo and their majesties have said, I hope that all of you will be able to unleash your full potential on the competition stage and achieve the results you desire." After all the representatives had finished speaking, the opening ceremony moved on to the next segment. It was also the most exciting segment, the grouping segment. There were a total of 32 teams that had entered the Continental Advanced Soul Master Academy Tournament's qualifying round. However, only 8 teams would be able to enter the final round. If the top 8 were to be decided through these one-on-one matches, many teams would be eliminated due to their bad luck, and it wouldn't be fair, even though it would be very quick. However, if every 2 teams had to compete, then the 32 teams would have to compete in close to 500 matches. The amount of time spent wouldn't be too much, and Soul Master's soul power and physical strength wouldn't be able to support such frequent battles. Therefore, as a compromise, this year's Soul Master Academy Tournament's qualifying round was decided by grouping the 32 teams into 4 groups. Each group had 8 people, and the Martial Soul Hall team, the Heaven Do Imperial Family team, and the Star Luo Imperial Family team were all placed in different groups. After the grouping, each group would have an average of 2 people who would advance to the next round. Within each group, the teams would compete in one-on-one matches, and the teams in each group would be ranked according to their number of victories. The top 2 teams would advance to the next round. However, there were still some loopholes in this system. After all, there were only 3 seeded teams, and one of the groups didn't have a seeded team. Furthermore, the strength of the teams in each group could be different. It was very possible that some of the teams in the group would be stronger, and some of the teams that had the strength to enter the finals would be eliminated. Although luck was also a factor in becoming a strong soul master, this was still a man-made tournament. Fairness was more important than luck. Therefore, apart from the top 2 teams in each group that would advance to the next round, the 3rd and 4th teams in each group would advance to the next round as the losers. After the winners and losers were decided, the teams in the winners group would be randomly divided into 4 groups to compete in one-on-one matches to determine the 4 losers. These 4 losers would then be divided into 2 groups to compete in one-on-one matches to determine the 2 weakest teams. Correspondingly, the losers group would also compete. However, the losers group would determine the 2 strongest teams. After this, the top 6 teams in the winners group would advance to the finals, and the bottom 2 teams in the winners group would compete in one-on-one matches with the top 2 teams in the losers group. After 6 matches, the 2 teams with the most victories would advance to the finals. This was the process of the qualifiers. Therefore, it was clear how important it was to be placed in a good group to advance to the finals. After all, although entering the winners group didn't mean that they would advance, it was already a kind of glory to be able to advance. If they could be placed in the 4th group without a strong seeded team, it would undoubtedly increase their chances of advancing. At the same time, they could avoid exposing their trump cards, so they could deal a fatal blow to their opponents when they least expected it. After returning to the center of the podium, the MC smiled at the audience. After that, he continued to say, "Next, let's invite the representatives of the various teams to draw lots for the qualifiers. After the drawing of lots, the opening ceremony will officially end. The first round of the qualifiers will begin in the afternoon, and the 4 groups will compete in 1 match each." Chapter 223. First, let us invite His Majesty Shui Yi of the Heaven Do Empire, His Majesty Dai Aotian of the Star Luo Empire, His Majesty Holy Dragon Dalo of the Martial Soul Hall, and Mr. Ning Fengji of the 7 Treasures Glazed Sect to come up to the stage and supervise the drawing of lots. The host's voice was broadcasted throughout the entire Great Soul Arena. The Holy Dragon Dalo and the other 3 stood up and walked up to the podium. At the same time, several staff members of the competition brought an opaque red lottery box and a few tennis ball-sized grouping balls onto the podium. There are a total of 29 grouped balls here. They all have a number, and these numbers are from 4 to 32. Apart from that, the size, weight, and appearance of these grouping balls are all the same. None of them have any markings on them. Now I would like to invite the 4 of you to inspect these balls. Following the MC's instructions, the workers placed the numbered balls in front of the Holy Dragon Dalo and the others for inspection. After the inspection, all of them nodded in unison to indicate to the MC and the audience that there were no issues with the balls. Very good. The 4 of you have unanimously agreed that there are no problems with the grouping balls. Now let us move on to the next segment. We will insert and shuffle the grouping balls. Following the MC's instructions, the workers began to place the balls into the lottery boxes one by one. After that, the Holy Dragon Dalo and the others began to shake the boxes one by one, completely messing up the positions of the balls. Ladies and gentlemen, the 4 of you have completed the shuffling of the grouping balls. Next, it will be the turn of the captains of each team to draw the grouping balls in order to determine the final grouping. However, before that, let me explain the rules of grouping. In the competition, the 3 teams that are guaranteed to advance to the next round are numbered 1 to 3. Among them, the Martial Soul Hall's Team 1 is numbered 1, the Star Luo Empire's Team 1 is numbered 2, and the Heaven Do Empire's Team 1 is numbered 3. Their groupings correspond to Group 1, Group 2, and Group 3. These 3 teams don't need to draw the grouping balls. The other teams will send their captains to draw the grouping balls according to the order I call. If a team draws the number 5, 9, 13, and so on, then this team will be divided into one group. If they draw the number 6, 10, 14, and so on, then this team will be divided into 2 groups. The rest of the numbers will also be divided into 2 groups, and the rest of the numbers will be calculated in the same order. Now, let me announce the start of the grouping round. First, let us invite the captains of the Star Luo Iron Blood Battle Team from the Star Luo Empire to draw lots. After the host finished speaking, a black-haired young man stood up. His face was resolute, and his eyes were bloodthirsty and filled with murderous intent. His movements were swift and decisive, without the summness, the Iron Blood Battle Team. Under the gazes of the audience, the Star Luo Long and the Star Luo of Tang Academy. What a fierce aura Star Luo! As Star Luo Academy is Star Academy. Wang Kai was slightly taken aback as he looked at this soul master from Star Luo Iron Blood Academy. However, he sighed in his heart. This competitor is not allowed to use any methods to detect the numbers of the grouping balls in the lottery box, nor are you allowed to use any methods to leave any traces on the other balls. Otherwise, your entire team will be disqualified and banned from participating in the next 3 editions of the Soul Master Tournament. Do you understand? The host reminded the young man when he came up to the stage. I understand. The young man's deep and magnetic voice sounded. After that, he drew a grouping ball from the lottery box. Star Luo Iron Blood Battle Team. Grouping ball number 13. Group result, Group 1. The host looked at the young man with a pitiful expression when he took the grouping ball from his hand. After that, he announced the results to the audience through the loudspeaker. Group 1 was the grouping of Wang Kai's Team 1 from Martial Soul Hall. Team 1 of the Martial Spirit Palace teams possessed great strength, and would almost certainly obtain a chance to advance. Therefore, the other teams that were placed in Group 1 would undoubtedly have a smaller chance of advancing. Furthermore, Group 1 was the group that most teams did not wish to be placed in. After hearing the host's words, the young man didn't reveal any fear in his eyes. Instead, he looked at Team 1 from Martial Soul Hall with a provocative look. The Star Luo Iron Blood Academy was an academy in the Star Luo Empire that nurtured soul masters who served the Star Luo Empire's army. The atmosphere of this academy was very brave and aggressive. They dared to fight against all enemies. As a result, when they found out that they were going to clash with Team 1 from Martial Soul Hall, they didn't reveal any fear in their eyes. Instead, they revealed a ferocious fighting spirit. Group 2, please invite the team leader from Heaven Do Empire's Blazing Academy to come up to the stage to draw lots. Following the host's words, Huo Wushuang, the captain of the Blazing Fire Academy, a tall and handsome red-haired man, walked out from the preparation area. Soon after, he arrived before the lottery box and extended his hand to pull out a grouping ball. Blazing Academy Grouping Ball Number 30. Group Result, Group 2. After hearing the host's announcement, Huo Wushuang heaved a sigh of relief. Although the Blazing Academy wasn't placed in Group 4, which didn't have any seeded teams, being placed in Group 2 wasn't too bad. At least, Team 1 from Star Luo Imperial Family was much weaker than Team 1 from Martial Soul Hall. They had a certain chance of advancing. Group 3, please invite the team leader from Star Luo Empire's Carmen Academy to come up to the stage to draw lots. Following the host's words, a black-haired, skinny young man from Carmen Academy walked out from the preparation area and strode to the lottery box. After that, he closed his eyes and put his hand into the lottery box. After that, he took out a grouping ball and passed it to the host. Blazing Academy Grouping Ball Number 8. Group Result, Group 4. After hearing the host's words, the black-haired young man's eyes immediately revealed a look of excitement. The other teams in the preparation area also looked at him with envious gazes. As a group that didn't have any seeded teams, Group 4 was undoubtedly the group that all the teams wanted to be placed in. In theory, their chances of advancing were also higher. After returning to his team, this team leader was surrounded by the other team members and enjoyed the treatment of a hero returning. Chapter 224. Songhui Academy Group Ball Number 9. Group Result, Group 1. Black Sunflower Academy Group Ball Number 20. Group Result, Group 4. Thunder Academy Group Ball Number 15. Group Result, Group 3. Skywater Academy Group Ball Number 9. Group Result, Group 1. Team after team received their specific groups, and now it was Skywater Academy's turn to draw lot. Looking at the number of the group ball in her hand, Shui Bing revealed a bitter expression. Now that they had encountered the Martial Spirit Palace Team 1 and the Star Luo Iron and Blood Academy, it seemed that they would not be able to advance to the next round as the winners. However, if they could enter the losers group, they would still have a chance to stand out. Shrek Academy Group Ball Number 22. Group Result, Group 2. Very soon, it was time for Shrek Academy, which Wang Kai was most concerned about, to draw lots. After hearing the results of Shrek Academy's draw, Wang Kai frowned slightly. It seemed like he couldn't thrash Shrek's 7 monsters in the qualifier round. He had to wait until the finals to have a chance. However, this wasn't a problem. Even if Wang Kai could lead Team 1 from the Martial Soul Hall to defeat Shrek Academy, they could still rely on their strength to enter the finals. When the time came, they would still have to fight with them in the finals. Now that they had one less battle, it wasn't too unpleasant. Finally, all 29 teams finished drawing their lots, and the 4 groups were officially formed. There was no need to talk about the composition of the other 3 groups. Wang Kai's first group consisted of Team 1 of the Martial Spirit Palace was from the Martial Spirit Palace. Team 1 from the Heaven Do Empire. 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 Team 1 from the Star Luo Ironblood Academy. Team 1 from the Purple Rainbow Academy. Team 1 from the Star Luo Empire. Since the groups were completed, the most important part of the opening ceremony was also over. The following process was nothing more than the referee's oath, the announcement of the competition's rewards, the announcement of the competition's schedule, and other trivial matters. In each group, every 2 teams would have a group battle. Thus, in the end, each group would have a total of 28 battles. The 4 groups would have a total of 112 battles. Unlike cultivation civilizations, divine civilizations, and body-refining civilizations, where battles would often last for several days, battles between soul masters progressed very quickly. This was especially so for soul masters who had yet to become soul sages. Battles would often end in less than half an hour. Because of this, the rules of the advancement tournament were rather tight. Every day, the 8 squadrons in each group would engage in 4 battles, covering all 8 squadrons in the group. The 4 groups added up to 16 battles, with 8 battles in the morning and 8 in the afternoon. The winning team would be awarded 1 point, while the losing team would not be awarded any points. 1 week later, all the matches would end, and the winner and loser groups would be determined based on the number of points accumulated. If both teams had the same number of points, additional matches would be held. The next morning, in the Great Soul Arena. Next, let's begin the first match of the first day. Team 1 from the Martial Spirit Palace versus Team 1 from the Weevil Academy. Wang Kai and the members of Team 1 from the Martial Spirit Palace arrived at the Great Soul Arena early. At the same time, the other teams also arrived one after another. Under the announcer's announcement, the first match began under everyone's expectant eyes. As the first battle of the advancement tournament, this battle itself had a great symbolic meaning, not to mention that this was the first battle of the champion team of the previous tournaments, Team 1 from the Martial Spirit Palace. All the participating teams were very curious about the battle strength of Wang Kai and the other members of Team 1 from the Martial Spirit Palace. Now, let's welcome the members of Team 1 from the Martial Spirit Palace. Along with the announcer's voice, the 7 members of Team 1, including Wang Kai, Hu Laina, Evil Moon, Yen, Li Yuemeng, Yu Hao, Su Lan, walked up from the right side of the Great Soul Arena with their heads held high and chests puffed out. At this moment, the 7 members of Team 1 from the Martial Spirit Palace were all dressed in light gold. In the center of their chests, there was a fist-sized soul character. All of them looked valiant and valiant. Under the illumination of the soul tools on the arena, although it was only daytime, they seemed to be releasing dazzling brilliance. They were like small golden suns, attracting the attention of the audience. Because they had an absolute lead in terms of strength, Li Ning's plan was very simple when facing the enemy. Send out the strongest team members and crush the opponent with crushing force. Of course, Li Ning was not an arrogant person. Although it was said that they would crush the opponent, it did not mean that Wang Kai and the other members would not hold back. This was because as long as they used part of their strength, Wang Kai and the other members would be able to crush the opponent. Before the battle, Li Ning had made a rule that Wang Kai, as the team leader, was only allowed to use his third soul skill, Shura's Dragonslayer Spear. Hu Laina and Evil Moon's Martial Soul Fusion skill would also be reserved as a trump card. As for the other soul masters, there were no restrictions on them. The appearance of Team 1 from the Martial Spirit Palace caused a stir. After the arena calmed down, the announcer continued, "Now, let's welcome the members of Team 1 from the Weevil Academy." Soon, the 7 members of Team 1 from the Weevil Academy went up from the left side of the arena to the center. When they stepped onto the stage, the entire stage trembled with their footsteps. Those who ascended the stage did not look like 7 people at all, but more like 7 mountains. The 7 members of Team 1 from the Weevil Academy were all dressed in black. The shortest among them was more than 2 meters tall, and the tallest one was more than 2.5 meters tall. They stood in front of Team 1 from Team 1 from Team 1, looking down on them. Compared to their height, their weight was even more terrifying. According to Xiao Guang's estimation, among the 7 of them, the smallest was more than 150 kilograms, and the tallest one in the middle was at least 250 kilograms. They had the same black hair, but the sides were shaved, and the hair in the middle was combed into a strange ponytail. Their tan skin was not much worse than their clothes. The 7 of them stood in a row like a thick city wall, looking sturdy and majestic. Standing in the middle of them was the tallest and most muscular man. He took a step forward and spread his legs, causing the competition stage to rumble twice and shake violently. Chapter 225. These soul masters are so big. Yes, look at them. They're so ferocious. They're like jinxes that have descended to earth. You're wrong. What's the use of being big? A battle between soul masters isn't about their size or appearance. It's about their soul power and the strength of their soul rings. The spectators started to discuss among themselves when they saw the members of the Elephant Armor Academy enter the arena. Silence. Seeing the 2 participating teams enter the arena one after another, the referee shouted loudly, and the noisy discussions in the arena quickly quieted down. Both teams bow. The referee shouted when he saw that the arena had quietened down. Elephant Armor Academy Team Leader Hu Yenli, Martial Soul, Diamond Mammoth. Rank 52 Defense Type Soul King. The team leader's voice was muffled, and the fat on his body seemed to tremble with his voice. He glared at Wang Kai with a ferocious look in his eyes. Some of the soul masters who were more familiar with the sex were astonished when they heard Hu Yenli's introduction. Hu Yenli's Diamond Mammoth Martial Soul was extremely famous on the Dolua continent. This was because this martial soul belonged to the White Tiger sect, the Wind Sword sect, the Elephant Armor sect, and the Fire Leopard sect, which was one of the 4 lower sects of the 7 great sections. As the inherited martial soul of the Elephant Armor sect, the Diamond Mammoth was very powerful. Its characteristics were mainly reflected in its strength and defense. A Diamond Mammoth Soul Master was very strong, and the Diamond Mammoth's defense was the best among all martial souls. It was known as the strongest defense-type martial soul. Generally speaking, almost no soul master of the same rank could break through the defense of a disciple of the Elephant Armor sect who had the Diamond Mammoth. Even if the enemy was a rank higher than the disciple, a soul master with the Diamond Mammoth could rely on his or her defense to last for a long time. Take the sect leader of the Elephant Armor sect for example. He was only a rank 87 soul Dolu. However, with his martial soul and soul skills, he could withstand the attacks of a rank 91 or 92 titled Dolua for several hours. This was enough to show the strength of the Diamond Mammoth. Because of this, the Elephant Armor sect was known as the strongest defense-type sect. However, even though the Elephant Armor sect's defensive abilities were very strong, the Diamond Mammoth didn't have much of an advantage in terms of cultivation. As a result, the Elephant Armor sect didn't have a titled Dolu. Otherwise, they wouldn't be ranked 6th among the 7 great sections. From the reports, Wang Kai and the other members of the Martial Soul Hall knew that the 7 members of the Elephant Armor team were all direct disciples of the Elephant Armor sect. One of them was a Soul King, while the others were all above rank 45. They could be said to be the elites of the new generation of the Elephant Armor sect. Not only that, these disciples of the Elephant Armor sect had trained together since they were young. They were adept at teamwork, and their actual fighting strength was not something that normal students could compare to. Facing a Soul King from the Elephant Armor sect, his defense was so strong that it could withstand the attacks of an early-tier or even mid-tier Soul Emperor. This posed an awkward problem. Although Hu Laina, Evil Moon, and Yen were all geniuses of the martial soul hall, their fighting strength was definitely not as heaven-defying as Wang Kai's. If they didn't use their martial soul fusion skills, although they could occasionally launch attacks comparable to a Soul Emperor's, they couldn't last for long. They might not be able to break through Hu Yanli's defenses. Furthermore, although the Elephant Armor team didn't have any auxiliary-type Soul Masters, their Soul Masters all had the same martial soul. They could stack their martial souls together. Furthermore, the arena wasn't very wide. It was only 100 meters in diameter. This was more suitable for the Elephant Armor sect. As a result, if they didn't send Wang Kai, it wouldn't be easy for them to defeat the Weaver Armor team with just Hu Laina, Evil Moon, Yen, and the other team members. They might even have to reveal their martial soul fusion skills. This was also the reason why Li Ning decided to send Wang Kai. Even if he only used Shura's dragon-slaying spear, Wang Kai's self-created spear technique was enough to unleash the strength of a high-tier Soul Emperor. It would be easy for him to defeat the Elephant Armor team. Furthermore, Wang Kai's rank would be exposed sooner or later. There was no need to hide it. It was best to keep his martial soul fusion skills as a trump card. Team 1 of the Martial Spirit Hall. Team Leader, Wang Kai. Martial Soul, Shura. Rank 63 Assault-type Soul Emperor. Wang Kai did not back down and took a step forward. Although his body was smaller than Hu Yanli's and his voice was not as loud as Hu Yanli's, the shock that his words brought to the audience was 100 times greater than Hu Yanli's body size. Soul Emperor, did I hear wrongly? How is that possible? I heard that the Holy Son of the Martial Spirit Hall isn't even 20 years old. How can he be a Soul Emperor? Could it be that his martial soul is a legendary god-tier martial soul? Wang Kai's words undoubtedly set off a storm in the hearts of all the Soul Masters and even the nobles. Before this, the record for the youngest Soul Emperor was 27 years old. Furthermore, when that record was set, cultivation was much easier. However, Wang Kai had pushed this record back by almost 8 years. After hearing Wang Kai's report, everyone from Shrek Academy began to discuss spiritedly. Third brother, that Wang Kai is actually a Soul Emperor. Do you think we still have a chance to win the championship? The first to speak was the golden-haired Dai Mubai. To him, the Soul Master Tournament had another meaning. If he could obtain a good ranking in the Soul Master Tournament, he would have a chance to catch the eye of his father, Dai Aotian, and inherit the throne. Otherwise, if his brother, Davis, inherited the throne, Dai Mubai and Zhu Zhuqing were bound to be hunted down and killed. They would never be able to return to their homeland, and could only live their lives in fear and trepidation. After Tang San had joined Shrek Academy, Dai Mubai had discovered that his cultivation had progressed by leaps and bounds. In just a few years, he had become a Soul King. Now Shrek's team had 3 Soul Kings. Coupled with his martial soul fusion skill with Zhu Zhuqing, Dai Mubai had originally thought that Shrek's team had an absolute chance of becoming the champions. However, after hearing about Wang Kai's abilities, Dai Mubai felt a sense of helplessness in his heart. Don't worry, Mubai. I know your situation. I think that with our hard work, we will definitely win the championship. While comforting Dai Mubai, Tang San also cast a serious gaze at Wang Kai. His intuition told him that Wang Kai on the stage would be his future enemy. In the future, there would definitely be a fierce collision. Furthermore, whoever won the championship in this Soul Master Tournament would have the upper hand in future battles. Chapter 226. Third brother is right. As long as we work hard together, we won't even be afraid of the Soul Emperor. At this moment, Ma Hongjun also took a step forward and said confidently, "That's right. As long as we work together, we'll definitely be able to become champions. We'll complete the mission that the Dean gave us, become champions." Hearing the conversation between Dai Mubai and the other two, Oscar nodded in agreement. "All right, let's work hard for the championship then. I have a feeling that we'll all benefit greatly if we become champions. You guys know that my intuition has always been accurate. Yes, we believe in you, third brother. Ning Rongrong smiled sweetly after hearing Tang San's words. Her face was filled with admiration. Tang San was filled with confidence after hearing his teammates' words. He raised his right hand behind his back. Let's do our best then. Yes, let's do our best. Everyone from Shrek's team had confident and cheerful expressions on their faces as they clasped their hands together. However, there was one person in the VIP seats who didn't look so cheerful. Instead, he looked miserable. This person's appearance was very special. Even the word special wasn't enough to describe it. This was because his body was too big. Although he was just sitting there, his body was still much taller than ordinary people. Roughly speaking, his height was at least 3 meters. Not only that, but his frame was also very large. He alone took up the width of 3 seats in the VIP seat. He was like a mountain of meat sitting there. He was tall and mighty. His skin was dark and muscular. His eyes were like copper bells. There was a layer of oil on his dark skin. Although his hair and beard were slightly gray, his aura didn't diminish. Evidently, this muscular elder was the sect leader of the Elephant Armor sect. He was a rank 87 Soul Doloa Huyenjun. Although he didn't have a title, he had a nickname, Heavenly Elephant. He had personally rushed to Martial Soul Holy City to watch today's competition. Sitting beside him was the Holy Dragon Doloa from the Martial Soul Hall. Unlike the Heaven Do Empire's 3 upper sects, the 3 lower sects were closer to the Martial Soul Hall. At this moment, Huyen Zhen was chatting with the Holy Dragon Doloa. Even though Huyen Zhen wasn't a titled Doloa, he was still a powerful Soul Doloa and the master of one of the 4 major sects, so his status was essentially equal to that of the Holy Dragon Doloa. Your Majesty's Sacred Dragon, your Martial Soul Hall has truly hidden themselves well. His Highness Wang Kai is a Soul Emperor. It looks like your Martial Soul Hall is determined to become the champion. A hint of envy appeared in Huyen Zhen's eyes as he turned to the Holy Dragon Doloa, but there was also a hint of indignation in his eyes. Of course. His Highness Wang Kai is the disciple of the Great Consecrator. His talent is naturally the best in the entire Martial Spirit Palace. In addition, he has worked very hard to achieve such an achievement. As for the championship, our Martial Soul Hall will naturally take it. Furthermore, I can secretly tell you that the rewards for this year's Soul Master Tournament will be more generous than before. So he's the disciple of that lord. I see. Huyen Zhen was enlightened upon hearing the Holy Dragon Doloa's words, and a hint of curiosity appeared in his eyes as he asked, Your Majesty, if I may be so bold as to ask, can you tell me what the final reward for the champion is? No, I can't reveal the secrets of heaven. However, you don't have to be anxious. You'll know when the opening ceremony of the finals begins in 10 days. The Holy Dragon Doloa smiled. Then, he asked, by the way, Sir Tianxiang, the captain of your team, Huyenli, seems to be quite strong. He's able to become a Soul King at such a young age. I'm afraid he'll be the successor of the Elephant Armor sect, right? For the disciples of the Elephant Armor sect, the bigger their bodies, the greater their strength and potential. Huyenli was much taller than his teammates, and he was also much more muscular. It wasn't hard to imagine how strong he was. Of course. Huyen Zhen revealed a proud expression when Huyenli was mentioned. Then, he said in a deep voice, Ali is the most outstanding disciple of the younger generation of the Elephant Armor sect. He's also my eldest grandson. His innate talent is better than mine when I was young. I hope that he'll become the first titled Doloa of the Elephant Armor sect in the future. The Holy Dragon Doloa smiled when he heard Huyen Zhen's words. Then, he said with a smile, It's really worth celebrating that sect leader Huyen has such a descendant. I also hope that the Elephant Armor sect will be able to produce a titled Doloa soon. I hope that he can lead the Elephant Armor sect to become even stronger. Thank you for your auspicious words, Holy Dragon Dolu. After hearing the Holy Dragon Dolua's words, Huyen Zhen couldn't help but grin. Then, he said with a hint of helplessness in his voice, originally, when Huyenli became a Soul King, my expectations for this year's tournament were actually for the top 3. I even wanted to fight for the championship. However, the strength of the teams participating in this year's tournament seems to be a lot stronger than before. I feel like it'll be good enough if Li and the others can make it to the finals. You're right. The participants in this year's tournament are really amazing. According to incomplete statistics, at least half of the teams that made it to the finals have Soul Kings. How spectacular is that? You have to know that in the previous tournaments, there were less than 5 teams with Soul Kings. However, this is also a good thing. With this batch of children, the Dolua continent will become more and more prosperous. Just as the Holy Dragon Dolua and Huyen Zhen were talking, the 14 contestants from both teams bowed to each other. The atmosphere in the arena became heavy in an instant. The audience's attention was focused on the contestants on the stage. Among them, Wang Kai attracted the most attention. The first match of the first day of the promotion round officially begins. Following the announcer's announcement, the match officially began. The 7 disciples from the Elephant Armor sect, who were standing opposite the Martial Spirit Hall's team, took off their shirts at the same time. Following that, they roared as they were possessed by their martial souls. Their bodies, which were already incomparably muscular, expanded once again. As their bodies swelled, the loose fat on the surface of the 7 Elephant Armor sect disciples rapidly transformed into exaggerated and terrifying muscles. A layer of dark yellow stratum corneum appeared on the surface of their skin, shining with a metallic luster. Other than that, their noses also extended and lengthened at the same time. At the same time, their upper lips turned up, and 2 fangs grew a foot long. Their appearances became ferocious and terrifying. Chapter 227. After using martial soul possession, the 7 members of the Weathered Armor team lifted their sturdy right feet at the same time and stomped on the stage. As the Martial Soul Holy City's great soul dueling arena, powerful soul masters often came here to fight. As a result, the dueling arena was made of an extremely sturdy alloy and reinforced with soul tool technology. This arena could even withstand a soul sage's attack. Even so, the entire arena trembled as a deafening boom rang out. After using martial soul possession, the 7 members of the Weathered Armor team released their soul rings one after another. Huyenli, who was the leader, had 2 yellow, 2 purple, and 1 black soul rings, which were the standard for a perfect Soul King. The other 6 had 2 yellow and 2 purple soul rings. As for their strength, Huyenli, who was the rank 52 captain of the Weathered Armor team, the other 6 soul masters had 2 rank 48 soul ancestors, 2 rank 47 soul ancestors, 1 rank 46 soul ancestor, and 1 rank 45 soul ancestor. If it was in the previous tournaments, they would have been able to compete for the championship. At the very least, they would have been in the top 3. However, in this tournament, where there were so many strong soul masters, their strength could only be considered above average. Even entering the finals required a lot of luck. At this moment, the members of the Martial Soul Palace team also revealed their martial souls or performed martial soul possession. Immediately, soul rings appeared one after another. Different martial souls also produced different miraculous effects. The dazzling brilliance fully stirred up the emotions of the audience. A black scythe-shaped weapon appeared in the hands of Evil Moon, who was the leader. This weapon was also emitting a faint moonlight, which looked extremely beautiful. 5 soul rings appeared behind Evil Moon, yellow, purple, and black. His aura was also increasing crazily. During the battle, Wang Kai also learned about Evil Moon's 5 soul skills. They were New Moon Strike, Moonblade Slash, Moon's Shelter, Moon's Descent, and Moon's Sprint. Hulaina, who was next to Evil Moon, had completed the martial soul possession. At this time, a furry fox tail grew out from her back, and her ears turned into nimble fox ears. She looked extremely cute. After the martial soul possession, Hulaina's temperament became more attractive and mysterious, and the soul power in her body became more vigorous. As for Hulaina's soul skills, her 5 soul skills were Foxtail Wrap, Fox Fire Strike, Charm, Bewitching Fog, and Spiritual Shock. Back to Yen, who possessed the Flame Lord martial soul. He had also completed the martial soul possession. At this moment, Yan's body had expanded by a large amount, and many tough and sturdy muscles had grown on the surface of his body. Not only that, Yan's body had a faint red color, and it was continuously emitting steam. As the other Soul King from the Martial Soul Hall, Yan's soul skills were Blazing Impact, Blazing Barrier, Blazing Body, Blazing Charge, and Blazing Heavenly Star. All of them were related to fire and were extremely powerful. Standing behind Hulaina, Evil Moon, and Yen were Yu Hao, Su Lan, and Li Yueming. They were respectively a rank 51 Soul King, a rank 49 Soul Ancestor, and a rank 47 Soul Ancestor. Yu Hao's martial spirit was a Gale Leopard, which was a powerful agility-type martial spirit. After using the martial spirit possession, faint leopard spots appeared on Yu Hao's body. His claws became sharp and slender, and his eyes became incomparably sharp. They emitted a faint green light which was quite frightening. As a genius of the Martial Soul Hall, Yu Hao naturally didn't have to worry about the configuration of his soul rings. Therefore, his soul rings were a perfect combination of 2 yellow, 2 purple, and 1 black. His soul skills were Violent Leopard Rend, Violent Explosion Defense, Violent Leopard Slash, Wild Rush, and Violent Leopard Assault. Beside Yu Hao was Su Lan. Su Lan's martial soul was the golden-eyed pentamerous elephant. This martial soul was very similar to the diamond mammoth of the elephant armor sect. After martial soul possession, his body swelled and a thick layer of cuticles appeared around his body. However, this layer of cuticles was multicolored. At the same time, Su Lan's eyes turned a faint gold after martial soul possession. As the only defense-type soul master, Su Lan's only task was to protect the auxiliary-type soul master, Li Yueming. Although Su Lan hadn't become a soul king, his martial soul was still very powerful and rare. His defensive abilities were also very outstanding. He could resist the attacks of ordinary mid-level soul kings. With the support of his martial soul, he could even resist a few attacks from high-level soul kings. Su Lan's soul skills were all defensive soul skills. They were Hard Skin, Thick Earth Shield, Wave of Resistance, and Steady Forest. The last person to fight was the auxiliary-type soul master, Li Yueming. At this moment, a 6-colored halo floated above her head. It was very beautiful. Her soul skills were Strength Halo, Defense Halo, Agility Halo, and Soul Power Halo. Of course, the effects of her soul skills were far inferior to the 7 treasures glazed pagoda. In front of his 6 teammates, Wang Kai didn't use martial soul possession. He only used his soul power slightly. Suddenly, his 3rd soul ring flashed, and the blood-red Shura's dragon-slaying spear appeared in his right hand. The audience was shocked when they saw Wang Kai's soul skill. How is this possible? A 10,000-year 3rd soul ring? Heavens, am I seeing things? His 3rd soul ring is already 10,000 year? Miracle, this is really a miracle. Generally speaking, a soul master's 3rd soul ring had a maximum age of 2,000 years. However, Wang Kai's soul ring had increased this limit by at least 8,000 years. How difficult and terrifying was this? It wasn't just the ordinary soul masters who were shocked. Even those who hadn't seen Wang Kai's strength before had looks of disbelief in their eyes. The person who was the most shocked was none other than Tang San. Originally, he thought that he was already a rare genius in the Dolua continent because he could pair a 10,000-year soul ring with his 4th soul ring. However, He didn't expect Wang Kai to be so much stronger than him. However, Tang San thought about it again. Wang Kai would at most pair a 10,000-year soul ring with his third soul ring. However, Tang San was a genius with a second martial soul. When the time came, as long as he was willing to add soul rings to his clear sky hammer, he would definitely be able to easily get a 10,000-year soul ring from his first soul ring. As he thought about it, Tang San felt relieved. At this moment, the battle on the arena had officially begun. Wang Kai had already charged forward with his spear, while Evil Moon, Yen, and Yu Hao followed closely behind. As a control-type soul master, Hu Laina and an auxiliary-type soul master, Li Yuemeng, were in the third echelon. Chapter 228. Just as Wang Kai and the other members of the martial soul hall charged forward, Li Yuemeng also activated her soul skill. Ring of Strength. Ring of Soul Power. Following Li Yuemeng's shout, the six-colored ring above her head radiated a faint red light and a faint purple light. Immediately, Wang Kai felt his strength and soul power increase by almost 20%. A 20% increase in his attributes was already very good. After all, not every martial soul was as powerful as the 7 treasures glazed pagoda. Boundless Blood Spear. When he was in front of Hu Yenli, Wang Kai immediately channeled all his strength and soul power. He became one with his spear and swung his arm to stab at Hu Yenli. At this moment, Hu Yenli and the other soul masters from the Weathered Armor team also activated their first and third soul skills. Immediately, a layer of crystalline color appeared on the originally dark yellow skin of the 7 mountains of flesh. Everyone's bodies seemed to be covered with a layer of enamel. At the same time, sharp spikes appeared on the surface of their bodies, making them look very ferocious. Gemstone Shield. Seeing Wang Kai charging towards him with his spear, Hu Yenli's expression turned serious. He channeled all his soul power, and his fourth soul ring lit up. An extremely thick and heavy gemstone shield appeared in front of him. At the same time, Evil Moon, Yen, Hu Laina and Yu Hao each took on 1 or 2 soul masters from the Weathered Armor team and started to attack them. By the time Hu Yenli condensed the gem shield, Wang Kai's spear had already arrived. Although he didn't use any other soul skills, Wang Kai's Boundless Blood Spear was a very powerful soul skill that he created himself. It could combine soul power and blood power, and its strength wasn't inferior to any of his other soul skills. It just needed some time to accumulate power. But even without accumulating power, Wang Kai's spear was still comparable to a mid-stage soul emperor. Following an ear-piercing friction, Hu Yenli's shield shattered. However, Shura's dragon-slaying spear was also stopped. Hu Yenli took advantage of the opportunity to grab hold of it with his thick hand. "You want to compete with me in strength?" What a joke! Hu Yenli saw Wang Kai's small body, and thought that Wang Kai wasn't strong enough. He wanted to use his own strength to snatch Shura's dragon-slaying spear. But he didn't know that Wang Kai's seemingly weak body hid a terrifying amount of strength. If he used his martial soul possession, his physical strength would be comparable to a soul sage without his martial soul true body. Wang Kai's strength wasn't something that Wang was comparable to Hu Yenli's soul. Hu Yenli's strength was Hu Yenli was a soul master. Hu Yen's spear, and Hu Yenli's, and Hu Yen's arms. At the same time, Wang Kai thrust his spear at Hu Yenli again. Hu Yenli had no choice but to use his gemstone shield to block Hu Yenli's attacks. Hu Yenli was able to block Hu Yenli's first few attacks with his own defenses. But as Wang Kai continued to thrust his spear, Hu Yenli felt the recoil from Hu Yenli's attacks grow stronger and stronger. His entire body was numb from the recoil, and his soul force was quickly drained from his gemstone shield. Wang Kai's teammates were also able to achieve great result. Even though they were fighting 1 against 2, Evil Moon and Yen Li were able to defeat the 2 Elephantine sect disciples that were attacking them. The Elephantine sect disciple that Hu Laina was facing was even more bewitched by Hu Laina, and he joined forces with you how to attack his opponent. Go down. Hu Yanli thrust his spear forward again. This time, Hu Yanli could hear his bones cracking. Hu Yanli's defense was strong enough to withstand the attacks of an early-stage Soul Emperor, but it didn't last long against Wang Kai's attacks. Should I use my soul bone? Forget it. Even if I use my soul bone, we don't stand a chance against the Martial Spirit Hall's team. They're all monsters, especially Wang Kai. After thinking about it carefully, Hu Yanli gave up on the idea of using his soul bone. At the same time, Wang Kai thrust his spear at Hu Yanli again. With both his arms broken, Hu Yanli was unable to block Wang Kai's spear this time. Wang Kai didn't want to leave a bad name in the Soul Master Tournament. Furthermore, the Elephantine sect and the Martial Spirit Hall were on good terms. Therefore, Wang Kai didn't use Shura's murderous aura when he stabbed Hu Yanli. He avoided the fatal spot and stabbed a bull-sized wound on Hu Yanli's belly before pulling out his spear. Faced with Wang Kai's attack, Hu Yanli knew that Wang Kai was going easy on him. Therefore, he followed the rules of the tournament and left the soul dueling stage to receive treatment. At the same time, Yu Hao and Hu Laina controlled an Elephantine sect disciple to gang up on him. Yu Hao easily defeated his opponent. With the addition of Wang Kai, Hu Laina and Yu Hao, Evil Moon and Yanli had completely suppressed their opponents. Now they had no chance of winning. They didn't want to embarrass themselves and continue fighting. Instead, they obediently admitted defeat and left the stage. The first match of the first day has ended. The Martial Spirit Hall's team has won 1 point. The Elephantine Academy's team has lost 0 points. At this moment, the host went up on stage again and announced the results of the match. Immediately, the audience erupted into applause and cheers. In less than 2 minutes, the Martial Spirit Hall's team had easily defeated the Elephantine Academy. Furthermore, the Martial Spirit Hall's team had 4 Soul Kings and a Soul Emperor. What a luxurious lineup! After bowing to each other, the two teams left the stage one after another. The second group of teams began the second match. Your Majesty Xing Long, your Martial Spirit Hall's strength is indeed well-deserved. It's no wonder you're a super team that has won many championships. Hu Yanzhen wasn't too surprised to see the Elephantine Academy's team lose. However, when he saw that Wang Kai was a Soul Emperor, he already knew that the Elephantine Academy's team would lose. However, he didn't expect the Elephantine Academy's team to lose so quickly. Although Hu Yanli still had a soul bone that he hadn't used, Hu Yanzhen was very clear that even if he used it, Hu Yanli wouldn't be a match for Wang Kai. This was because Wang Kai had only used his third soul skill. As the Holy Son of the Martial Spirit Hall, how could Wang Kai not have a soul bone? Your Majesty Tianxiang, your Elephantine Academy's strength is actually not bad. Although you've lost this match, it doesn't mean that you can't win all the subsequent matches. You might even be able to fight for a spot in the winner's bracket. At the very least, with your team's strength, won't it be easy for you to obtain a spot in the loser's bracket? The Holy Dragon Doloa comforted Hu Yanzhen as he looked at him. You're right. I hope Ali won't be affected by this. I'll go and comfort him too. After he finished speaking, Hu Yanzhen stood up from his seat and walked towards the preparation area where the contestants were. Chapter 229. On the other side of Shrek Academy's team, Tang San and the other members of Shrek's 7 monsters were also filled with astonishment. Oh my god, they were crushed. They were actually crushed. This is unbelievable. The Ouija Academy's team had a Soul King and 6 Soul Ancestors, but they were actually defeated by the Martial Soul Hall within 2 minutes. The Martial Soul Hall's team is really frightening. Furthermore, did you guys notice that Wang Kai only used 1 soul skill from the beginning to the end, and it was only his 3rd soul skill, but he was able to defeat Hu Yanli. I wonder how strong he is? After witnessing the strength of the Martial Soul Hall's team, Shrek's 7 monsters revealed serious looks in their eyes, and they started to discuss. Although they were very confident in their own strength, the Martial Soul Hall's team's strength had far exceeded their expectations, and they felt extremely pressured. After the Martial Soul Hall's team defeated the Ouija Academy, Wang Kai and the rest returned to the preparation area. The second match was between the Star Do Imperial Academy's team and the Miller Academy's team. Facing these two teams that weren't very strong, Wang Kai and the other members of the Martial Soul Hall's team didn't have much interest in watching, so they started to discuss their tactics and shortcomings. In the blink of an eye, a day had passed, and all 16 matches had ended. Among the 32 teams, the one that attracted Wang Kai's attention the most was naturally Shrek's team. However, their opponent in this round was the Corso Academy's team from the second group, which was an advanced Soul Master Academy from a certain kingdom in the Heaven Do Empire. The strongest person in this academy was only a rank 44 Soul Ancestor. In the previous year's Soul Master Tournament, he was still quite impressive, but in this year's Soul Master Tournament, his strength was extremely ordinary. Even the weakest auxiliary-type Soul Master in the Martial Soul Hall's team, Li Yuemeng, was 3 levels higher than him. Furthermore, there were only 3 Soul Ancestors in this team. The other 4 members were merely Soul Elders. Against Shrek's team, which consisted entirely of Soul Ancestors, they naturally didn't have the ability to retaliate. In a mere minute, they were all defeated. Shrek's team chose to hide their strength in this battle, and even sent out their 3 substitute. In the blink of an eye, it was the second day. Today, Wang Kai's Martial Spirit Palace Battle Team 1's opponent was the School of Botany. This was an academy from the Heaven Do Empire. All of the students had plant-type martial souls, while the majority of their soul masters were control-type and defense-type soul masters. Their strength was only slightly stronger than the Corso Academy that Shrek Academy had defeated the day before. Their captain was at rank 46, and there were 5 Soul Ancestors in the team. Against such a battle team, Wang Kai didn't even need to take action. Just Yen alone was enough to defeat them. Hence, Li Ning didn't arrange for Wang Kai, Huliena, or Evil Moon to fight. Instead, he gave the substitutes a chance to fight. Naturally, they won easily. Another day passed. This time, Wang Kai's opponent was the Tsanghui Academy. Li Ning and the other instructors didn't take this academy too seriously. However, Wang Kai knew that although the strongest person in the Tsanghui Academy was only a rank 49 Soul Ancestor, and the strength of the other team members was basically only at the initial or intermediate stage of the Soul Ancestor stage, they had a heaven-defying skill. The 7-person fusion skill. Furthermore, their fusion skill didn't target the Soul Master's body, but the Soul Master's spirit. Hence, although Li Ning didn't understand, under Wang Kai's insistence, he chose to fight in this battle. Next, the first match of the third day. Martial Spirit Palace Battle Team 1 vs. Tsanghui Academy Battle Team 1. Following the host's words, Wang Kai's Martial Spirit Palace Battle Team and Tsanghui Academy Battle Team went on stage one after another. Seeing Wang Kai's appearance, the audience's emotions were all puzzled. In their opinion, the Tsanghui Academy Battle Team was weak, similar to the Botany Academy Battle Team that the Martial Spirit Palace Battle Team had defeated yesterday. Wang Kai, a Soul Emperor, didn't need to fight at all. However, since Wang Kai had appeared, the Tsanghui Academy Battle Team could only be defeated in an instant. Hence, the audience in the arena all looked at the Tsanghui Academy Battle Team with pity. Everyone, silence. Both teams, salute. The battle begins. Following the host's words, the battle officially began. The Martial Spirit Palace Battle Team's Soul Masters activated their martial souls or summoned their martial souls. On the opposite side, the 7 members of the Tsanghui Academy Battle Team had already gathered together when the referee announced the release of their martial souls, forming a strange formation. Following the referee's voice, the Tsanghui Academy Battle Team's captain suddenly stretched his back. His feet moved slightly, and his body immediately retreated 1 meter, entering the hexagonal formation formed by the other 6 people. As he retreated, the other 6 people took a step forward at the same time. The originally dense hexagonal formation suddenly expanded. The strange thing was that although their formation expanded, the hexagonal formation didn't scatter at all. The distance the 6 people took was exactly the same. And the position that the Tsanghui Academy battle team's captain retreated just happened to be the center of this formation. Obviously, this was a formation that had been practiced for many years. Following that, under the gaze of all the audience in the arena, the 7 members of the Tsanghui Academy battle team raised their right hands at the same time. At this time, the martial souls of the 7 members of the Tsanghui Academy battle team finally appeared in front of everyone. What appeared in the right palm of the 7 members of the Tsanghui Academy battle team was a gem. Seeing the martial souls of the Tsanghui Academy battle team's members, the soul masters on the field also showed surprised expressions. The color and appearance of the gems in their palms were different. There were circular, diamond-shaped, triangular, and droplet-shaped ones. The colors were also the 7 colors of the rainbow, but the moment these 7 gems appeared at the same time, a layer of dense colorful light suddenly emerged from their bodies, completely enveloping the 7 people's bodies. A gem martial soul was definitely an extremely rare martial soul. It wasn't that they were very powerful, but just like Tang San's blue-silver grass, this kind of martial soul had great extensibility. They could develop in any direction according to the different soul rings they obtained. It could be a strength type, control type, agility type, or even support type. Everything was based on soul rings. It could be said that it was the martial soul that relied the most on soul rings. In the world of soul masters, the stronger the martial soul, the better. But generally speaking, most martial souls were already set when they were awakened and had the most suitable direction for their development. And this gem-type martial soul was the opposite. It was the most uncertain of all martial souls. Of course, this kind of martial soul was also extremely rare. How could it not be surprising that 7 soul masters with gem-type martial souls suddenly appeared in the arena? What's more, these 7 people were from the same team. Chapter 230. If it was said that the appearance of 7 soul masters with gemstone-type martial souls made the audience feel astonished, then the following scene could be said to be completely shocking to the audience, and could even be described as shocking. Under the gaze of the audience, the captain of the Tsanghui Academy team revealed a faint smile, then slowly raised his right hand and raised the gem in his palm. His martial soul was a round silver gem, exuding a beautiful luster, and this gem had become the core of the Tsanghui Academy team. At the same time, the 4th soul ring on his body lit up, and the other 6 members of the Tsanghui Academy team maintained the same action as him, lifting up the gems in their hands, and their 4th soul rings lit up at the same time. His Highness Wang Kai and everyone from the Martial Soul Hall team, your strength is very strong, but today, we will completely defeat you and make you our Tsanghui Academy's stepping stone. The dense light flickered, and the captain of the Tsanghui Academy team looked coldly at Wang Kai, his mouth revealing a strange smile. 7 Shura's illusion. Following the low roar of the 7 members of the Tsanghui Academy team, 7 colorful lights soared into the sky almost at the same time, with the Tsanghui Academy team's captain's martial soul as the center, instantly condensing into a huge 7-colored light beam. That light beam shot straight into the sky, breaking through the air for nearly 50 meters, and then quickly spread out, completely enveloping the 7 members of the Tsanghui Academy. Suddenly, only the dazzling and huge light was left on the field, and the 7 members of the Tsanghui Academy team disappeared at the same time. What's going on? In the VIP seats, the Snowy Knight Emperor was shocked and muttered, Could this be the legendary 7-in-1 martial soul fusion skill? Seeing the change in the Tsanghui Academy team, Ning Fengji, who was sitting next to the Snowy Knight Emperor, also had a serious expression, but after thinking carefully, he shook his head. No, it shouldn't be. In my memory, There is no soul master in the Dolua continent who can complete a 7-in-1 martial soul fusion skill, and this is not a 7-in-1 martial soul fusion skill, it should be the so-called 7-in-1 martial soul fusion skill. Although there is only a difference of 2 words, the power of the 7-in-1 martial soul fusion skill is far inferior to the 7-in-1 martial soul fusion skill. Even so, it's still a very high-level martial soul technique. Once it's used, its power will definitely be much stronger than their own strength combined. If I'm not mistaken, these 7 children may only be soul ancestors, but their combined skills are definitely at the level of a high-stage soul emperor. In fact, they might even be able to match a soul sage without using their martial soul true body. Ning Fengji was a little worried as he looked at Wang Kai. He then said in a self-deprecating manner, "Your Majesty, this Continental Advanced Soul Master Tournament has really opened my eyes. The young soul masters of this generation are indeed much stronger than we were back then. Not only are there so many soul kings, there's even such a rare fusion skill." As the continent's #1 support-type soul master, Ning Fengji was very clear about the research and understanding of martial souls, which was why he could see the details of the Tsanghui Academy team's fusion skill. However, many of the other soul masters watching the competition were not as insightful and experienced as Ning Fengji. When they saw the Tsanghui Academy team's skill, they were so shocked that they could not close their mouth. 7-person martial soul fusion skill? Seeing the huge and gorgeous 7-colored light pillar, this was the first word that flashed in the minds of almost all the soul masters present. However, unlike the Snowy Night Emperor, the other soul masters who thought of this word did not have Ning Fengji, the head of the 7 Treasures Glazed sect, to explain it to them. Heavens, is this really just a competition between advanced soul master academies? Even the continental ranking tournament of the Martial Spirit Hall was not as good as this, right? Seeing this scene, almost 99% of the soul masters had the same thought in their mind. Captain, is this a 7-person martial soul fusion skill? What should we do? Seeing the Tsanghui Academy team's actions, everyone from the Martial Spirit Hall showed a look of surprise and even fear. At the same time, they looked at Wang Kai with anticipation. What was a 7-person martial soul fusion skill? It was a powerful soul skill that only existed in legends, and was also known as a divine skill. Once it was used, it could give a soul master 1,000 times more than the 7 Treasures Glazed Pagoda's amplification effect when the 7 Treasures Glazed Pagoda was used. It gave a soul master the ability to fight above his rank. If the Tsanghui Academy team really used a 7-person martial soul fusion skill, although the 7 of them were only soul ancestors, their overall strength was at least comparable to a soul Dolua. If the degree of fusion was high, they might even be able to defeat a titled Dolua. Facing such a terrifying opponent, how could the members of the Martial Spirit Palace battle team not feel scared and helpless? Everyone, don't panic. How can a 7-person martial soul fusion skill be so easy to use? Carefully feel the power of their soul skill. At most, they have reached the level of a soul sage without using their martial soul true body. This is not a 7-person martial soul fusion skill at all. They just used a special technique to unify the power of their soul skill. There's nothing to be afraid of. If Wang Kai was just an ordinary member of the Martial Spirit Hall team, then under fear and pressure, he might not be able to discover the truth of the Tsanghui Academy's fusion skill. But Wang Kai was different. He was a transmigrator who jumped out of the 3 realms and was not in the 5 element. He also knew a certain historical line of the Dolua continent like the back of his hand. Therefore, the truth of the Tsanghui Academy's skill could not escape his eyes. After listening to Wang Kai's words, everyone from the Martial Spirit Hall team also calmed down. Then, they felt the power of the 7-person Tsanghui Academy's fusion skill. The surprise and fear on their faces quickly disappeared. Facing a 7-person martial soul fusion skill, they had no chance at all. However, their opponent's skill was at most a 7-person martial soul fusion skill. This was not difficult for them at all. At this moment, the 7-colored light pillar condensed from the Tsanghui Academy team also spread at an extremely fast speed. In the blink of an eye, it had filled the entire arena. All kinds of treasure lights burst out from it. The soaring colorful light almost illuminated the entire arena. The blurry brilliance was filled with a strange atmosphere, and the 7 people from the Martial Spirit Hall team had been completely engulfed. Seeing this scene, the entire audience was silent. The commentator in the VIP seats could not say a word. Before the start of the competition, who would have thought that such a situation would happen? Could it be that the Martial Spirit Hall team, which had a powerful Soul Emperor like Wang Kai and many Soul Kings, was going to lose to the unknown Tsanghui Academy team?